check, check. Oh, that music. Oh, yeah.
We are June 27th, 2021, Echo Park Lake. Here for 4 hours of some inner life street epistemology.
Yep, if we have interlocutors. We probably will, because there's a good bit of traffic today. We just had a couple come by and talk to us for a few minutes. They're probably going to wander around and then they might go down.
Yep. Busy week this last week. Was the Rebel Wisdom Workshop this week?
It was last Wednesday.
Oh my gosh. Time flies.
Yeah. That was a workshop with 14 presenters.
Yeah, I'm amazed everyone showed up. That was pretty amazing.
Oh yeah, when you start getting to those kind of numbers, you just got to account for some people are going to be able to not make it at the last minute. But I think in our case, it was going to be real simple. If that happened, we could reduce the number of breakout rooms by one or something and work it out. Since we were trying to present the same workshop to all 7 breakout rooms, that would have been pretty seamless.
Yeah, I don't like giving talks and workshops. It's not my forte.
That's okay. We have enough good people that do that. Yeah. I don't mean you're not good if you don't do that. I mean people that are good at that specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm still finishing editing the American Atheist workshops too.
Yeah,
I'm like halfway
that put me through a huge wall of editing.
Yeah, and I'm like, I started out, like I could just take your time code, put them all on a timeline and export, but I'm like very finicky cropping the zoom in some way and like making sure I'm like recreating the keynote so it's not being covered by people.
Oh wow.
And
wow.
So yeah. Hello.
Hi there.
How's it going?
We're doing free water and free speech today. And you can have one or the other. You don't have to, it's an opt-in. It's all good.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm like halfway now.
Okay.
Through the
Is there something where if I were in person, that would be of any help? No.
Unless you're completely doing it for me.
No, that's fine. I can do that. I could totally throw some hours at it, but I think I'd have to be at your equipment.
Yeah, or at least borrow the hard drive.
Ah, okay. So if I had the hard drive and a laptop, then that would be enough.
Yeah.
The laptop would probably have
Water,
to have
sure,
Final
yeah.
Cut. Yes, please. The laptop would need Final Cut Pro?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll need to get some training on that. I'm familiar with Lightworks, and years ago I was very familiar with Adobe Premiere.
Yeah.
So I understand the mechanics of it, but obviously I don't know where any of the buttons are or what their icons look like.
Yeah, and Final Cut is pretty significantly different from the standard NLEs like Final Cut 7 and Premiere, where there's difference between the way the footage is stored and the way the timeline works. It's a magnetic timeline rather than rows of channels, or what was that term called? It's just lanes or
yeah, like video 1, video 2, video 3, how many ever lanes you had, so you don't want stepping on each other.
There's just a primary storyline, and then stuff attaches to that, and if you move clips around that are connected to it, stuff magnetically just kind of puts together, and I like it much better.
That sounds really good. I'll have to just learn it. Yeah.
And the event library is really good. You're not using folders and subclips. You're using keywords and tags and metadata to filter things with smart events and smart stuff. So it's much better that way.
Okay.
I kind of go overboard with my metadata organization. Like I sync it all and I split up every conversation into its own thing, and then I add keywords to it, like where we are, who's doing the interview, what the topic is, and I get kind of very organized that
Being
way.
very kind to your future self.
Yeah.
That's good. Full frame cameras for the win. Yes, we're doing a live stream, doing interviews on any topic you choose.
Yeah.
I should get out of this chair.
That's cool.
All right.
Okay. So if you're watching, just stand by. Just put us in a tab or something and go retwitter or chat in the chat. Or go on the SE Discord and click on the link to join the show. And we can chat in between interlocutors. There's so much goose or whatever, duck poop in this area. But it doesn't smell. And there's no flies. Whatever.
Avian poop is so much better than other kinds.
Yeah.
Well, the delay on this thing is just like,
Yeah, I cannot do it.
Kimberly's got my jumping ball.
Oh no.
Well, rather than having her park, I just had her stop long enough. I grabbed one thing, and she's gonna bring my other 2 bags, and she brings the other water and lunch.
You want to go help her? Try to find her? That seems like a lot. With the water and the ice and everything? Another whole water case? And the bags?
Case of water, bag, 2 light backpacks. I think she's good.
Okay.
But she's an Amazon.
An Amazon?
She's a strong as you, baby.
Alright.
I know what wrestle.
Wrestle.
Yes. Wrestling can be kind.
Uh-huh. Quite a few swan boats out there. I want to get on a swan boat and once I do a conversation, you do one, I'll go out on a swan boat and report. Because it's kind of hot today. That'd be hilarious. Oh, there's Kimberly. Hey. Oh my gosh. Topics. What should the topics be for today? The weather is super hot. 82 here. It's okay in the shade.
Kimberly's watching us on YouTube.
Alrighty.
And Pine Creek just went live.
Great.
Actually, I don't know if it's live.
No, there's a 2-minute video.
Oh, okay.
Digital Gnosis is live.
Yep. Yep. Maybe.
Is that video still premiering? Oh my god. It should be over by now.
Did you cut it off at 2 hours? Or...
It's like 2 hours 15.
Okay. You done?
Yeah. It's just now finishing.
On the stage, David and I will stage. I'll be learning from David.
Oh shit, I need to mute the iPad. There we go. Any suggestions? I need to add some.
So we definitely.
Should I try astrology again? Let's do it. Make that better. Yeah. Pretty stoic. The modern day debate channel is probably a good spot to find claims that are kind of recently on people's minds. How about the classic, are humans a product of evolution?
If I ignore the religious and the flat earth, I get down to a relatively small list of trans and critical race.
Yeah. How about this? Should the U.S. pay reparations to anyone?
That's fine. I like that.
Is it possible to be racist to someone who is white? Is yeah.
Morality objective, of course. Really coming up dry on planes.
I've got some. Let's try that one. That's very spicy.
I keep doing a such exercise of digging through my mind for planes. So many times a week that I'm starting to polish the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
Then I do have lists of wedge limits. From. I know where they're pinned.
Do you know where they're pinned?
Yeah, I've got a pinned account. I've got lists of like wedge issues
Uh-huh.
that I pin and use in practice. Yeah, what's really cool is we have several regulars who have built up their own lists of claims that people choose from amongst them, so that becomes real nice.
Yeah, I'm trying to compile a spreadsheet of claims like that with different tabs and different categories.
Okay.
And on the columns, my current confidence level, whatever that month is that I added them.
Okay.
And then I'll add them. If I change my confidence, I'll update the column
Okay.
in a different time.
Okay.
So I can see what I believe, how confident I am, how it changes over time. Hello.
If it's a little floppy and animated, that's maybe better.
Shit.
One of those inflated guys from whatever kind of places use that for advertising.
Yeah. Sex trade should be legal. Okay.
What you do is as simple as a fan and a tube, and you'll get frick mammal vision. The guys that do that, that's hacking mammal vision.
Yeah. Same with the flipping of the signs and the waving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All you need is bilateral symmetry and random motion. Especially motions that, like whipping.
Whipping, yeah.
It needs to be aperiodic, acounternistic.
Maybe. I wonder how fast you can go on a swan boat. All right. I always get so much interest right before I start. What are we doing right where we're about to start that attracts people?
I don't know.
What does that do? I'm not doing anything different. I was just sitting here.
Huh. Were we setting up and fiddling with things before we got started?
Maybe.
Now, I don't know. Obviously, when we went on live stream, we started paying close attention to what we were talking about, the rest of the microphones and that kind of thing. But the couple that showed up were, well, they asked about water first. Some of it was simply retracted by the water and the rest of the setup.
It's free. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Doing free water and free speech. Have either or. Yeah.
Sure.
Uh-huh.
Can we joust on the swan boats? I'm sure we could. putting the timer over on their side so they can choose and they can see. I was sitting over there, and if I have the timer here, they can't see it because of the microphones in the way.
I see.
Shit. I don't know about that. Oh yeah, we could use the swan boat amount as our number truth game. Evidable suggested asking the question, are there an even or odd number of swan boats on the lake?
Ah, okay, sure.
That's a good one.
Did you count the ones that are parked or not?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Since taking them in and out of the lake is probably a big deal, we can probably look on the still from your drone footage and count them.
Yeah, or Google Maps maybe. Satellite view.
I look at a bunch of these and think that they are they're taking on water.
Oh.
Some of these are a lot higher up than others, and I think they're the same model. I think that's probably taking on water in their flotation.
What about controlling for people's weight and how many people are on there?
I look and I find the ones that are the lowest, and they only have 2 people in them, and they're not usually large.
All right. Yeah.
But, you know, I live on boats, so that's what I'm paying attention to.
Right. You gotta pay attention to that.
Yeah, pay attention to it. How's your freeboard?
I think they're like mostly plastic.
I don't think they're in any danger of spontaneously sinking.
Yeah. Do you think any of them could sink all the way down? Or would they float because of the plastic?
are also filled with foam.
Yeah.
So, and I actually do expect that the bottoms of the boats are filled with foam and not just open. And what will happen is they'll get a small leak, and the foam will slowly take on water. That's the downside of that type of boat, is they get heavier and heavier and heavier, and they're a pain in the ass to actually get the foam to dry. It takes as long to get the water out of the foam as it did to get in. So how long do you have the boat out of the water? Are you going to replace that foam now? And if you're not, how long do you want to wait? Now, if you're trailering the boat every week, you'll never have a problem. Hey, if you park it in your driveway, it'll be perfect. Water. This is only impressive to jugglers.
That's hard.
I suppose I'd have to do them like clubs like this, in a very controlled throw.
Hello. Hello.
Free walking. And we're also doing free speech. Yeah, but ours is freer than all. Freer speech. The freest.
Well, not at all. Yeah. This is YouTube.
I'll post some chat with Jeff.
Oh.
Hey, Reed.
Good day, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm fair.
So I know you're juggling lessons, so what's your name? What do I call you?
Yeah, juggling lessons or Dolly, D-A-L-I.
D-A-L-I. Okay, Dolly.
Wow. Oh, good. Kimberly. And the black bug. Yeah. So, Jeff, what would you like to talk to me about today?
Well, got lots of. Had one claim that I thought was really good. I think you were in the chat room on the Discord server when I explored that one. But I've got one that's always been something I've bounced off people. A claim that is everyone believes that what they believe is the right belief all the time.
Okay. Everybody believes their belief is correct all the time that they believe it.
Yes.
Okay. And when they change their mind, now they're sure that that new belief is correct.
Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to see what the alternative is. If somebody didn't do that, would that mean that they believed something without being sure of it, or they acted as if something were true while not being convinced of
it? So I think you're asking me. Restate the question again. I didn't follow that.
Well, I'm trying to think. If people believe while they believe, I'm trying to think of what the alternative would be. If they somehow didn't believe while they believed, what would that mean? Would they mean, if they were directly if they were directly oppositely thinking about it, then that would be just perverse or
well,
something.
that's cognitive dissonance, right?
Let's see. A lot of noise in here. Okay, go ahead. I've muted the alternate microphone. There was a lot of noise. It's pointing right at a little four-wheeler vehicle that the people are using. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So if a person holds two beliefs that are mutually exclusive, i.e., they both can't be true, you have cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
And regardless, the person is going to hold on to one particular belief until he says, no, that I don't believe that anymore. And it's not just about religion, it's about anything. It could be what I believe about politics, what I believe about the nicest restaurant in town, but everybody believes that what they believe is the right position to
Are
hold.
eggs bad for you? Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if a person, I've got person A over here who believes, just like you say, that they believe real hardcore until they change their mind, and now they believe real solidly the other way. But person B is less like that. What does it look like for someone to less believe? Does that mean that they don't act on it? How would they be different?
Less believe. So I would agree that certain things may be more intrinsically important to a person in their
Mm-hmm.
life. And so interpersonal relationships, your job, the things you do that provide for you and your family or your loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
And so those things people weigh to a bigger extent, and I think place more weight. And their belief system they use around the structures of those things are very important. Now, there's some things that are obviously not trivial matters, like am I 100% sure my car's in my driveway still? Right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you know, does the grocery store have eggs? I'm pretty sure they do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But still,
Kimberly might be trying to get our attention. Do you see her trying to attract? Hold on a second.
yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay, darling.
All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, that's it. Just that everybody believes that what they believe is the right thing to believe, because
Yes.
if they didn't, they would change their mind and hold a different belief.
Sure. Sure. So, what if I used to believe that eggs were bad for me?
Okay.
And then eventually I decided that eggs were good for me.
You've changed your mind.
Could I have come to that change of mind really gradually and almost never noticed? Or is there a time when I'd have to have changed my mind?
I suppose you could. You may not be aware at the time that it's happening. The change is happening. That's gradual. But once I think, if you look back and you go, "Hey, I used to think A, and now I think B," I changed my mind at some point, and you may not even be aware of when you change your mind about that thing.
Okay. During that time, would it be correct to say that I flipped a switch? Is that the description that you're making? That at some point I flipped a switch?
I don't think on every change of mind it's a flip of a switch. I think it can be, but I think you're right. It can be a gradual thing, and you may work towards realizations of things, but eventually you change your mind about specific things. And I'm going to continue to hold this opinion about this specific thing until the preponderance of the evidence, or I give sufficient reasons to understand why I shouldn't continue believing. And again, it can be about anything.
Yeah.
It applies to interpersonal relationships absolutely splendidly. When you're dealing with another person, you always think you're trying to do the right thing, because unless you just are maybe a jerk, by nature, you like being a jerk to people, right? I don't think most people want to be jerks. They
Mostly I don't.
Yeah,
I'm sometimes a little perverse.
I'm an eternal optimist. I can't help myself.
Okay.
I'm a realist and an optimist, and so that's. I guess I live with.
That's a good place to be.
I live with cognitive dissonance every day. I'm a realist and an optimist. How does that even happen? What is to be optimistic about reality, right?
I have lots of optimism about reality.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah.
But in abject terms, and if you stand away and look at it, it's like, man, we're all pieces of space flotsam hurtling through a universe that, and and there's nobody in the driver's seat, baby.
That's true. There are no controls on this spaceship.
Yeah.
We're stuck with the momentum we have.
But no, I love it. I love the life. I love the here and now.
I am especially grateful for Luna that stabilizes us.
Yes, without that, we wouldn't have tides or beautiful moonlight. Yeah.
Right. Tides, moonlight. Um,
A stable orbit.
yeah. The what we keep seeing with other planets is that they can perturate until some point. It all it takes is 1 year where you've got a pole pointed toward the sun, and you're done. You're done as a biosphere. The summer and winter get too extreme.
Mm.
So having a moon that keeps us in a keeps us from wobbling too far is really helpful, and
Yep.
apparently kind of rare.
But wait a minute, the Earth's flat, haven't you heard?
Ah, yes, locally. Yes, I agree. Locally, it seems that way, indeed.
Have you?
But
Have yet?
you know, heck, space-time seems locally flat too, on the order of the cosmos.
I've yet to talk to any flat earthers. I would love to like do an SE session with somebody that claims the Earth is flat. Have you had the pleasure?
Yes, I have. Most recently, it was a few weeks back on the Chatterbox, and it was kind of interesting because he kept like laying out meat, saying, "Oh, you're gonna bite at this, aren't you?" It's like, no, I'll just ask you the reasons why and let you keep talking. And I basically you could score when I asked a good question by when he changed the subject and introduced a new claim. At one point, he says, "You can't measure a radius. You could calculate a radius, but I don't know what you're doing with the numbers."
What? You can't measure a radius?
Apparently, math phobic or something, because I think I can measure a radius by measuring a circumference with a pi tape.
Yeah. Yeah. Pi r
Yeah.
squared. I mean, it's not...
I could measure the center of this lake without swimming.
Yes. If it's round.
Well, I could measure the geometric center. I
You
could measure
could.
the center a whole bunch of ways
Yeah.
with a little map. It'd be great. I could probably use Google Earth.
I don't. It's just it boggles my mind that there's people that believe that stuff. I don't know. It's sad, really. At the end of the day, it's really sad. And it does cause me concern for our society, and especially the battle you see in the South. I live in Charleston, South Carolina, and the battle you see in the South still, with them trying to teach creation in schools and don't want evolution to be taught, and it's like we're crippling a generation of children. And yeah, I don't know. It concerns me. It's people believe all kinds of things for all kinds of reasons.
Yeah, it's and that's a scary thing in a democracy.
Yes, because they vote. Yeah,
Yeah,
and you get
Yep.
and you get some of the shit shows that we see currently in our political form, and I won't go any further there to politicize it, but I mean it's by anybody's estimation a shit show.
Oh yeah, it's a mess. I think that level of polarization is the main emphasis I have in my desire to do street epistemology. I think it's the best tool that I currently know how to wield well toward reducing polarization.
I agree. I had a conversation with someone just this last week, and the last interactions I had with them, I was still a devout Christian, and so I had shared that I now describe myself as an agnostic atheist, and this person just started opening up to me and asking me a bunch of questions about questions they had and their experience in church, and they're not going to church anymore, and my time studying. Wow, it's loud.
I'm sorry, Jeff. Hold on a moment.
Yep.
Somebody who paid extra for pipes on their vehicle. So go ahead again.
So anyway, my experience, my time here observing you guys doing street epistemology, and having begun to practice it in real life. I've not filmed anything yet. I felt well equipped to be able to have a difficult conversation when I didn't feel like I needed to change her opinion and change her mind. But she said she had questions, and I said, well, you might, just look here and look at it. And I did say, if you don't want to know the answer, don't go look, because you can't unsee it.
Oh boy.
You can't.
That's almost manipulative.
Well, they were
I'm
asking.
not annoyed by that. It's okay.
It's
over.
They were asking tough questions, and I've known this person for a long time. And it's just with COVID, we haven't interacted in a while. And so yeah, it was good conversation, and I love what you guys do. And
thank you.
Yeah, it's really inspired me, and really challenged me and changed me in my approach to almost every interaction I have with people. So yeah, I owe a debt of gratitude to you and Reed and Anthony Magnabosco. It's been it's been fantastic.
I am so delighted to be included on that list.
Well, hey, I like
those
all
are my
you
heroes.
guys, man. Yeah. I participated in a couple of things, and I sent some friends some links when I've been on, and hey, guys, check it out, and I've been pretty excited about it, and my wife's been very understanding, and she actually, she's still a Christian, but still encourages me to do this. She appreciates what I'm doing,
So how does that work? Unequal yoking and all that?
Yeah. I think that we both just agreed that we love each other, and we respect one another, and that's not a central thing that has to be the same. And I went through a deconstruction, and she's been through it with me, and she found John Steingard online about the same time I deconverted, and that helped her. And so I just we just don't talk about it. I mean, it's okay. I mean, I do my thing and she does hers, and I'm talking with my friends and I tell them I'm an atheist, and she's okay, and she says I'm Christian, and okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Wow. That's sort of the Pine Creek means. Is just love and respect each other and don't bring it up.
Yeah, and it's not a point of a contention or an argument. It's just, I think she's probably moved quite a bit from where she was to a little bit more liberal stance on her beliefs, having, just confronted with stark realities about things as I found out things my own self in this last year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
Year and a half. So yeah, I'm happy for her to be where she is, and I don't feel like I need to do whatever. She's a good person. She's got a good heart, and if she wants to believe something and it helps her, then I don't. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Can I poke enough to find out where she stands on eternal conscious torment, or something like that?
She doesn't believe that there's a hell.
Oh, okay. So she's some kind of a universalist or annihilationist.
She would call herself a Christian, and she would say that she believes in Jesus, but she just throws out all the bad stuff.
Okay. So yeah,
it's very
whether we
simplistic.
all wind up in heaven or at least none of us wind up in hell, that's much easier. That's much easier to say. Yeah, my partner, okay. But fearing that your partner is going to have the worst possible torture for the most possible time.
Yeah.
It's just oof.
Yeah, I don't think she
If
doesn't
I thought
believe
so,
that.
I just couldn't stand still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think she doesn't really think that. And
Yeah. Well,
there was
if she's
there,
not into hell, then ooh,
and there was a
so much
time when
easier.
there was a time when we both believed that, and
Uh-huh.
of course now as an agnostic atheist, I don't believe any of it. And
Right.
she's just kind of left all behind all the stuff that just doesn't make any sense, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, if it's she's accepts evolution and the fact that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, and
Okay.
she knows that there was no flood, and
Mm-hmm.
but Jesus helps her. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I'm all right
Cool.
with that. And
Yeah, that's so benign.
yeah, I mean, it's like okay, she doesn't
Yeah.
read the Bible, and we don't. She doesn't pray, and we don't pray, and it's just a little. It's just kind of a. I don't know. It's just kind of a. Not even a big deal anymore. You know.
Cool. That's so good.
Yeah, it is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love my wife. We've been married for 16 years.
Mm. Wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you like my help carrying something?
I got 4 things of water.
Okay. And
Hey
we've got
Doc.
a lot of water and ice for us.
Hey Dolly, I got a friend that's come
Yeah.
over. I'm gonna have
Thank
to
you.
sign off. It's a great conversation.
Thank you for coming and
sir.
talking with us.
Have a nice night.
Thank you. I'm going to start juggling.
Bye, Dolly.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Does anyone else hear Gangnam Style?
Okay, that's I just got
There's someone dancing over there next to the statue. Okay.
nope. Yep. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Recorded. I got that recorded.
Okay.
That happened to me when I was shooting.
Turns out, reading glasses and definitely not a great combo.
Yeah.
Focus on the fine details involved. Notice, boy, I tell you, optical dysfunction.
Yeah, very nice day. 82. Feels very good in the shade, though. Twitter.
Topics are being spent, like the should euthanasia be taken.
Free water. Free speech. Water. Yeah.
Alright.
As long as there's no swimming, I'm good with backwards jumps. Yeah, when I do that, it's not on purpose.
Oh, okay.
It's because I'm throwing badly and I gotta move to catch him.
Oh, okay. I also upside down.
Like, you walk by the outside of me and you're like, oh, it's worth it. You can swim. I don't think it's wearing shorts.
I think it's got the crowds on. But yeah, going down that slope.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
But I can tell where I'm going. No problem. Where am I going?
Yeah, I heard Reed ask the question, what are we doing before we said, they see or not really?
Free water. So, with all that copyrighted music,
Yeah.
by the way, I have that mic muted.
Okay.
I'm saying that I have the instrument muted because there was a utility vehicle over here. I think I got my mic free water. Free water.
Hello.
Looking at prospects. You seem to be glancing, staring at the crowds. I asked if you were looking at prospects.
In particular, everyone in general. Kind of along the lines of traffic. far enough out of pitch, does it count as not copyright?
Yeah.
That's really sad. I'd have to work really hard in practice to get that far out of pitch. It would be for a comedy routine. Oh man. Never mentioned that picky about pitch. Drink water. Yes, please. Thank you, bud.
People, and I think you get the better chance of people if they're out there talking. I could be wrong.
Free water and free speech. We're doing interviews.
I'm thinking I can see people right here. And that's up to that. I'm just
They're on the lookout for jugglers. They're on the lookout for jugglers.
Yeah.
Free water.
Free water?
Free water.
We're also doing interviews today.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Maybe the next time I come, I have something free to give you guys.
Well,
Opinions?
we're here doing interviews. That
Okay.
would be the most. That would be the valuable thing. the
Yeah,
most.
opinions.
Do an interview?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm ready for an interview, but
Yeah. On any topic you choose.
any topic.
Any topic you choose, and you can set your own timer.
Yeah.
Let me give him a walk.
Sure.
I'm not ready. I'm not shy. I'm just saying I'm not ready for it.
That's fine. And we're really easy interviewers. We try not to push back from an alternate place. We just ask you about your claims, your reasons, what kind of data you use to get to your conclusions. Try not to argue from an alternate perspective. Yeah. You bet. You too. Thank you. The long busk.
We're almost at the end of the line of the swan boats.
It's amazing how long that line can get. Maybe they've only got one loading dock or something.
It's so strange.
Free water. Free water. It's not a voting line, so you can have water. It's not a voting line, so you can have water. Yeah, free water. Howdy. Free water. Free water. I saw you looking at my free water. You can have my free water. Free water.
We're back.
karaoke set up over there?
Must be. Well, hour and a half and nobody. Oh well. It happens. How's the foot traffic? I mean, there's a whole bunch of people around.
Wow. What'd I tell you? She's badass and she likes it. So apparently somebody's got a karaoke thing set up over there.
Yeah, that was my guess last time. Because that was too disturbing to be there.
We'll load it up slowly.
Since I'm caught up in the middle of the street.
Doesn't do that automatically. You catch up, you can't go fast.
Okay,
Slows down to one end.
lost video and audio? Oh, it's back. Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
I just saw it, so.
Free water. Really? Actually.
Nobody's sat down so far today.
Nope, no alligators. Piranhas ate them. That's flagrant misinformation.
Yeah. Mm. Well, Should we start asking people in line if they have time for an interview? I don't want to harass people.
I think that's pushing it.
Yeah.
Free water. Free water. Free water. Free water.
Oh yeah. I've been out here for 4 hours and only had one person. Oh well.
Well, I'm gonna get a water for you. Oh, yeah, no money. Please, have water. Come on. No, can't take money. Thank you. We interview people online. What you can do is delete it.
Okay, you just said hello.
I've got to stand up.
Hello, but
How's your patience? Free water?
Yep. Como permite el micrófono, amarra el cómo está, el timón, yo creo que sí fueron vamos a estar ahí sin poder tomar vamos que sí que sí. What? You can see it. Esta pinche madre no tiene techo. No mames. Eso ve, le está pegando el sol. Porque no lo movieron.
Yeah, sure. Gigi's suggesting, strap on a GoPro.
I saw that.
I'm wondering,
I'm not
move back away from the line somewhat. That
too
way.
shy for that.
I like your backdrop here. Just people aren't talking.
Yeah. You couldn't have a better spot, you know?
Oh, I think being this close to the line is an absolute showstopper. I think the line crowds it out.
It crowds it out. People
Yeah.
are embarrassed to sit down. Should we move that
Yeah.
way?
When we're this close to the end of the line, it's all stepped on.
Really?
I'm not sure exactly how to describe that, but
People, yeah.
my ability to even catch somebody's eye, the line was on this side of that concrete, this side of that lamppost. Just the closer it was, the worse, the more tunnel vision.
We don't stand out. It's too much.
I don't know why
Should we move that way a bit?
we can do that.
Really?
That would take just a few hands and we could pick it up as a unit. Well, about 6 units, but still.
Really? If you think it'll help.
I can't see it hurting.
True.
It seems like the cost-benefit ratio is in our favor.
I mean, yeah. Let's get the chairs first, I guess. Or
Oh my.
Kimberly, grab an end of the table, please.
Mm-hmm. Bags. Further, which way? Which way? Okay.
I invite you to change the framing. Give it different color. sodas?
Huh?
Are there more sodas?
This bag, and gotten them all out of that bag, I'll bring them more to the top. Assuming nothing goes into that.
Pretty sure that's true. Okay, Marco.
Either one of you have half to be. It doesn't have to be our cup. It could be yes, see why we don't.
Hello there. Yeah, free water. And we're also doing interviews. Yes. You can take the free water. You don't have to have the interview. We're doing street epistemology as a means by which we talk to people about whatever they think, whatever they believe, understand why and how they come to that conclusion. And we try not to push back from an alternate perspective. Oops, we just moved and this is all theatery.
Hi there.
You want to sit on this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's all this about?
Street epistemology is where we. Thank you. Street epistemology is where we talk to people about things they believe and why they believe it, how they come to their beliefs. Epistemology is the study of how people come to know things.
It's the knowledge, right?
Yeah, it's just about knowledge.
Oh.
So my name is Dolly. Your name is?
Peter.
Hello, Peter. Tell me something you believe that's true.
What do you mean?
Could be any claim you think is true about the world. Could be any claim that you think is a fact or should be a thing, like is a moral belief. Could be a personal opinion.
What kind of personal opinion are you looking for? Political opinions?
It could be political. It could be personal. It could be religious. It could be scientific.
So let's just work on what you guys have on board.
Okay. What do we have on the board there? Okay. Is astrology true, or are humans product of evolution? Is it possible to be racist to someone who is white? Or, well, you're...
Okay,
any old
for
thing.
the first one,
Is astrology true?
no.
Okay. So you think astrology is not true?
Yes.
Okay. So how did you come to believe that astrology was false?
It's just a really silly idea.
Okay, you find astrology a silly notion.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, most of the stuff that you use in astrology sounds like backward astronomy, like, oh, there's Mars is in retrograde, like,
Yeah.
no, that's Platonic astronomy. That's not even Copernican. It's like you're backwards.
Oh, okay. So they're even looking at it from the wrong perspective.
Yes, I'm not sure how the alignment of stars is going to do anything with you.
Oh, Mercury in retrograde or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand what they mean when they say Mercury in retrograde, because where we are, it looks like it's turned around in its path on the sky. But as you say, if you're looking at it from a sun-centered perspective, it's just continuing around in its path, and it's passing us or something. Yeah, I hear that. So, have you always had the opinion that astrology was false?
More or less.
Okay.
I mean, there was a time when I was like in 5th grade when I was interested in occult stuff, but technically passed.
Okay. So you could pass a test on astrology back at the time? Is that what you said?
Well, I said there was a time when I was interested in the occult generally, but not anymore.
Okay.
It was like the time when Harry Potter was the big thing, so I was like kind of big at occult, but I mean, like just gave that up. It's just too late.
Okay. So what did you learn that lead you to give that up?
Because most of it is just silly. Like astrology, it's based on not even real astronomy anymore.
Okay. So what could you learn, something you don't know today, that would raise your confidence that astrology was false? What could make you more sure that astrology was false?
Nothing, because I'm already 100% sure that it's just a silly thing that people. They're just a silly thing.
Okay. Could you imagine data? Like imagine somebody faked some data, but you believed it. What kind of data might move you toward thinking astrology could be true?
Absolutely nothing.
There's no data you could learn.
No, I mean you could like get data points of like all the astrological readings and whether they correspond to someone's life, and I still not believe it because it's probably just coincidence.
Okay.
Or just the thing is worded vaguely. It's just like the Oracle of Delphi. Like
Okay.
back in the days, they'll have like the Oracle say some really vague thing, and then they just took it, ran with it, and if that really vague thing happens to correspond somewhat with whatever happened, then they just say, oh, it worked. Or I think there was a story about this guy this general who said, okay, you go to Oracle of Delphi and you try to find out if I'm gonna win this. So the guy went there, found out, okay, I got this bad prediction. Well, go back again and get a good prediction. And then went back again. They, no, we still had a bad prediction. Well, go back one more time and find out if you're getting a good prediction. Finally, they quit the last time, got a good prediction. Like, oh right, let's go to war, and then they won.
Oh. Okay.
I'm not sure where the story came from, but I just remember reading about it somewhere.
Okay. So I'm trying to think of some of these tests that have been used to measure astrology. So imagine I got somebody who was really good at reading people, and they got 100 people in the room, and he asked them questions, none of which had to do with their birth date, but just about their psychology. And 50% of them, he guessed their sun sign. Would that move you?
Well, that's just cold reading then, right?
I don't know. Is there a way that you could test whether cold reading was happening? Could you set up a test wherein you could make sure no cold reading could have occurred?
Probably not.
No? Okay.
I mean, that's the thing with these street, that's the thing with these street things. Like, what you call it? These hucksters.
Okay.
That's like 3-card Monty. It's like,
Yeah.
no matter what you do, you're always gonna win.
I follow a fellow named Darren Brown, who's good at demonstrating cold reading. He doesn't try to fool people with it. He's more like the magician who shows you the tricks. I like
Okay.
Darren Brown for that.
Okay.
Yeah. So thank you for this conversation. I've enjoyed it. Do you have any questions for me on the subject? Or on anything?
No.
No?
Thank you for the water.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was our first interlocutor for the day. Merely 2 hours and 15 minutes in. It's been a lot of waiting today. I'm going to stand up and juggle and see if we can take advantage of being further back from this line.
Hello. When he graduates, does he get purple?
Yes, actually. In fact, I just ordered their new purple vest.
Good.
Because his clasp on his harness is cracked a little bit.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
had it for so long. This Prince Charming and Four.
Four. Prince Charming. And you are?
I'm Steve.
Hello, Dee. I'm Dolly. In this case, it's probably in the negative. Oh, he was very close.
I'm sure that I exist. That's how I'm 100% on that one. I'm sure that the things in the universe that I experience and interact with, like the man where I'm still going to come back to me and all yeah, and so I can get some grounding rules of logic from there and move on. Non-existence does not exist as a basic logical definitive principle. Like existence, non-existence, so it does not exist. That's a defining state. Yeah, well, The only thing that doesn't exist is non-existent. Everything that falls in that set is itself, because there's nothing in that set, not even itself.
So it's equivalent to the
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I'm sure you can reach that from just basic logical principles. The only problem is when you go back to the base grounding root, where you have to start your logic. So if you were to go to the Principia Mathematica, so he has to start though with a concept before he can talk about anything. So you have implicit singulars and definitive external, and before you even start talking about what those are and how to define them, you have to have those in play to talk about them, which is the whole circular, that's the problem with it. But the thing about that is it's not terribly much of a problem, since logic is a language for expressing how we interact with perceptive reality, which is a separate field from logic that logic represents, and that's not circular if you relate them to each other.
Okay. I understand.
So, with the
None of this is
premise
my own epistemology.
that non-existence does not exist, you run into some interesting things there, though. Like no smallest size, no farthest distance. No non-existence. So no matter how small a piece of it you cut, there must still be something inside it to be cut apart.
Okay.
Yes, the Planck is a wavelength. It's the smallest detectable wavelength from our ability to interact with relatable wavelengths.
Okay.
That has to do with scalable relatability, and like you have a field that you could use to make determinances of relatable. And if the thing you're trying to relate to is larger than your field, you can't really express it.
Okay.
So
the Planck size is arbitrary leftover from
relatable interactive.
Yeah.
Definitive of the smallest potential.
We can totally replay this and do it over for the light. Go over that.
I wanted to review a couple of notes because I wrote a couple of things down yesterday.
Sure. Have a seat.
So. Huh? Oh, no, I prefer to have them with me. Thank you so much.
Okay. I don't know if anybody could overhear us. We were just talking about the deepest of philosophical philosophery.
The roots of logic and philosophy.
Yes. Yeah, he made a claim. He made a firm claim. He made the claim that he existed, and he put 100% on that.
I experienced my existence in a absolute fashion. I mean, I know when I hurt and when it's cold and when it's hot, you know. I can experience the world around me in definitive terms that I can relate to. And I don't think I could be shaken of that.
Okay.
That's, I mean, short of someone killing me, if I stopped experiencing myself, I don't think I would express myself as being existent anymore. Although other people may still express me to have been existent.
Sure.
That's somewhat outside my scope, though.
Yeah, exactly. So where would you be on I exist?
Definitive. I know I exist.
No, me.
Oh, you exist. Well,
The IU thing.
the IU thing.
So it's a language thing.
Yeah, actually, we were going to start with the roots of logic, but if we want to jump ahead into that, that's a little bit further down the road.
I'll come back down to we can go to the roots of logic first.
We could. Well, I don't mind jumping to a little overview of that at least. I'm certain that the external reality exists outside of my perceptive range.
Okay.
There's things that exist even if I need to use tools to explore and experiment with them, and they were still there whether or not I used the tools to look at them. I'm certain of the extant, like being more than myself and having been previous to me. And there's several routes that you can use to get there logically, but one of my favorites is my experience of the world is as data processing. Like I see hot and I feel hot and cold, and I see light and colors, and all of these things are relatable fields of data. I've studied informatics a little bit, so my experience of processing data can be explained as a mathematical function,
Sure.
and I can view other people's experience of processing and interacting with data from an external state. And I can watch them create fields of data that I don't have access to and interact with it and make things out of it, and then be given the roots of what that was and come to see why they did the things they did because of interactions that
Okay.
I'm behind a screen and can't hear them and can't see the cards they're holding up or the things they're writing down. I can only hear what they're saying to the microphones,
Okay.
or what, when they push the button. So I have an outside of what the data set that's being created. And then I'm given, so I can see why they did what they did and see that it happened outside of my field of understanding. This is a thing that occurred in the world without me, that was information being created and inputted, exported, and exchanged by external entities in the same way that I experience me to do so.
Okay.
So presuming that that's not happening would be a far stretch.
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay. So, I'm thinking of Dr. Bernardo Castro, who's an idealist. Are you familiar with idealism?
A little bit,
The,
yeah.
the notion that mind creates external reality?
That concept is a little far-fetched and would
Okay.
be very difficult to, how would you experiment with that concept to demonstrate it?
Yeah, that's a hard one for me.
Yeah.
I'm reaching for his position because it, for me, I'm a practical materialist, or
Me too.
what methodological materialist or methodological naturalist.
I have an interesting methodological solution to the measurement
Go ahead.
problem.
Tell me.
So, quantum, when we're looking at quantum fields, what we're looking at is objects smaller than you can, just very, very small things. Lots of them in a very, very small space, but they're very, very much smaller than the small space they're in. So if you were to imagine
sure.
scalar, like how many protons are there in the universe?
Sure.
How many quantum particles are there in a proton is more than there are protons in the visible universe. This is a
didn't follow
relatable.
that.
This is a relatable field. Okay, so it's about scalars. So inside a proton, there's a series of quantum bits performing orbitals that their orbital sets are
We're
the
talking
proton.
about like the 3 quarks of a proton?
Yeah, it's not actually. The
Or
thing
there's
is,
more than that?
the thing is, what a quark is a complex quantum orbital series.
Okay.
It's a set of small components doing things in that small space. They're all zipping around each other. The proton is more complicated than just 3 objects. That's a very oversimplified premise for what a quark actually is.
Are you saying that the complexity of a proton is similar to the number of protons there are?
In the visible universe, actually larger than that by an order of magnitude.
Okay. When I think of the number of protons, I'm thinking on the order of 10 to the 80, something like that.
Yeah.
And you're saying
the
that
scale
the scale
inside
within
a
is
proton,
like 10 to the 90 or something.
Yeah,
Okay.
something about that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a lot more complexity than I've ever heard for quantum theory.
Okay. Well, there is some data to back that up, but you
Good.
have to go look up, quantum particulate size scale and atomic size scale. There's all kinds of measurements from that from various institutions worldwide. So
what do I glean from the greater complexity within a proton than above it, or larger than it?
wait. So larger than I'm sorry. I missed.
If you're saying there's greater complexity
Inside
within the
the
proton than above it in that hierarchy.
in the hierarchy. So
What
our
do I glean
local
from that?
scalar, we can't really graph or depict in any meaningful way what's actually going on. Like, you could look at a tiny piece of it and blow it up, but that wouldn't relate to how much of it there is. Or you could look at how much of it there is, but none of it would be clearly referenced. It would be too many actions going too quickly, or a frozen still frame of tiny little dots that you can't even see what they're doing. You know, the ability to visually depict and reference quantum orbitals is, we're never going to have that.
Okay.
That's not a possible because
They're-
of scalar differentials.
They're too complex, or they need to be too precise, or there's too much data.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can only use their interactions to depict or express them in any meaningful way.
Right.
And only what their interaction says in a meaningful way about what's going on at our scale where we can interact with it.
Okay.
So that's not terribly useful for actually saying what's going on with their actual orbital patterns, or how fast they move in what directions, or how much they pull on each other.
Okay.
You know,
it would be very hard to take any measurements of that. Nigh impossible.
Right, especially if you're talking about something that's below the Heisenberg scale.
Yeah, that's one of those true things that you can't prove, is that things are actually still physically going on inside the quantum scale, and they have existent relatable interactions that work the same logical way that everything else does. 12 spheres around one sphere, you know, one turn of a gear at one turn of a gear next to another gear of a size relative to it is going to be that many turns of the gear relative to it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It doesn't matter how small you make the interactive objects, they're still going to relate to each other in the same meaningful ways.
Okay.
That's the premise for non-existence does not exist, is that the laws of logic apply at all scales.
Okay.
Because there is existent material that has functional determinants. You know, the thing is what it is and isn't what it isn't, and is where it is and isn't where it isn't.
So you see quantum theory as deterministic?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I would assume
But
determinism
beyond
all the
our
way down.
ability within our scalar to make determinants of. Just because it operates in a deterministic way doesn't mean we can determine it.
Right. We can't interact with it at that level. When we interact, it appears random.
So I have an example for this.
Okay, go ahead.
So if you've ever been to like one of those dance parties, raves, you know, and you see people dancing with glow sticks, sometimes people take pictures of them with slow frame photography.
Sure.
So you get a blur image that looks like a bunch of light, and you can barely see that there's a person in the center there dancing, which I've actually had some pictures of me taken like that. But I think they're long gone to dust in the days of MySpace. Anyway. So if you have one of these pictures of a blur of light spinning, and I were to ask you which direction was the guy spinning the light in, pretty much every way you can imagine, right?
In some cases I'd be able to know, and in other cases I wouldn't.
Yeah, it's a blur that's going multiple directions. He's got, you know, an orbital star going on that he's shifting, so it turns into a spin.
Sure.
It's just a blur. So you can't say which way it's
mostly
going.
I don't have clues as to the direction of time, unless of course he throws it in the air during part of the time, because then I can tell a crow from a
That's what I was
catch.
about to add to it, is that we can add some things to this that are going to make it seem like we have a clear measurement. So I have a guy with a camera taking the picture, and now we add to this that there's a guy behind him with a beach ball, and he throws the beach ball over the cameraman's head, and it bounces off of the guy spinning the lights. When he happens to hit it, it goes off that way.
Okay.
He's still spinning his sphere of lights, so it's still a blur, but added to this blur is now this other blur that is a clear line that interacts with that blur and tells you for sure at that moment it was going that way.
Okay. Well, or it came from that way and went over the cameraman's head.
Yeah, well, that's...
Unless you're able to take multiple frames of this, you couldn't tell in which order it necessarily happened.
Yeah.
It's time reversibility of something. Yeah.
There is some issue with time reversibility there, but we're going to say that we set up the experiment to know where we're taking the image from and what we did. You know, we know we threw the beach ball from behind the camera.
Okay, we know that happened. All
and
right.
we know the cameraman is there, because actually the beach ball bounces off and falls and is still sitting there, so we know that it ended. It didn't just go off camera to the end.
Okay.
It's still there in the frame sitting.
So we counted for the beach ball before
we have an
and after the
understanding
event.
that it must have come from behind the camera, bounced off the thing in the direction, and landed just from the image. We can get that out of that.
All right.
Without having to add extra.
So how does this address the measurement problem?
Well, when
could you
we
define the measurement
apply
problem for any of us who haven't looked it up recently?
when we apply an interactive field to the particle to get an idea of which slit it's going through, we isolate its a field of interactive waveforms. It itself is not a solid object, so we isolate it to within where we interacted with it.
Yes.
So
we collapse the waveform, or other words for that.
The measurement is an interaction occurrence between two waveform differentials, and it isolates the position. And the thing about the distance relationship is we have to go back to non-existence does not exist. I have to go back through a number of things to explain how the universe... We view the universe to be expanding.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I when you say non-existence does not exist, it immediately gets replaced in my head to say that all things that don't exist are equivalent. That there is one non-existent thing defined, and they're all the same thing. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
There's just that one thing that doesn't exist because
Uh-huh.
everything else must exist at some size or at some scale.
Okay.
This is the thing I was getting to about things working the same way at all sizes and all scales to a
Okay.
degree. 12 spheres around one sphere and the number of turns of a gear and how interactions occur.
I don't know what the 12 spheres around one sphere means.
It's about size differentials and ratios to each other. If you have one sphere of any given size,
Okay.
12 of the same size will fit around it in a nice pattern. 12
I
around
understand.
one,
Okay.
like 6 circles around
optimum
one
packing
circle.
a sphere. Okay.
Yeah, it's about packing. Yeah,
Okay.
it's about ratio and size differential, and the concept of a thing being the thing that it is and relating to other things that it is the way that things do.
Okay.
Like you can tile with triangles of the same
Yes.
size. Doesn't
Okay.
matter how small they get.
Yes.
Yes, that's all I'm trying to explain.
Yes.
Basic
Okay.
principles of relatable, interactive, what we can observe and show to be true a number of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, but with that premise that non-existence is not going to exist anywhere, no matter how far you go, or how small you get,
Mm-hmm.
if we're to try to imagine infinitely small, like we still haven't gotten there, 0 point infinite number of zeros, but then still a 1, because there can't ever be nothing. So we're gonna imagine that there's an infinite number of zeros there, that we have numbers we can use like that.
Okay.
So this value, this infinitesimal value, it has, because of the way numbers relate and interact and the way we relate numbers to reality, it has functions. If we were to apply that to our laws of the universe, the way we view things work. So this unit, it's indefinably small, has no size or shape. It doesn't have relatability to anything else, and it doesn't have any ability to move because it doesn't have more energy than itself. It can't give any energy up or share any energy or exchange energy with another
It's
position.
at the lowest quantum energy level?
This is technically not necessary, but it's infinitely small is unrelatably infinitely small. I'm talking about the fact that all relatable scalar fields are a ratio of an infinite number of infinitesimal bits inside them and an infinite number of equal scalar fields outside them and layered across them, each with their own infinitesimal center.
Okay.
None of which has any size. The infinitesimal centers of each position have no relatable
They're
size
points,
or shape.
yeah.
They're so
They're single-dimensional points.
they're unrelatably smaller than any scalar field, so
Okay.
any scalar field can collapse towards them literally forever and never reach them.
Okay.
Okay, so we view space relatively to be expanding.
Yes.
I think that's because material energetic fields are collapsing under an infinite connective pressure of those unitary bits.
Okay. How fast were they collapsing?
That's relative to each other. I really don't know. I mean, we're talking about a collapse towards an infinitesimal state. If we assume Dirac's equation for energetic interactions is actually the case, not the modified version, his original one that he was arguing for, it shows
I'm betting
that
at least one person in my audience is not going to know what this means.
electron fields collapse.
Direct
Under
equation.
the
I can't remember
mathematics.
Dirac's equation.
It's the equation for quantum electrodynamic interactions.
Okay.
Spin relation and spin dynamics.
All right.
It says that the electron field should be collapsing toward the proton prohibitively quickly, which we don't see. We see it
Right, we don't
exist in
see
quantum states, and it makes those jumps where light is created.
Yes.
And I have an explanation for that, because it is actually collapsing towards the proton prohibitively quickly, but the proton is also an orbital cloud of spinning bits, and it is also collapsing prohibitively quickly, and the two of them remain in ratio to each other.
Okay, so if I have a hydrogen atom over here and a hydrogen atom over here, and
They're both collapsing very quickly, as well as getting closer together very quickly.
They're getting closer together this way. So
yeah, everything is collapsing
we can't
into
actually
itself,
see that
and
difference.
yeah, it's all ratio because it's all under one pressure force of one connective state.
Okay, is this shrinking responsible for dark
Our
energy?
observation of the universal expansion, yes.
Okay, so dark energy has a different source. In your case, it's the
Material collapse.
okay.
Energetic
Why are they
fields
collapsing together?
Because
at the same
all
ratio as they're
fields
collapsing
around
this way?
all potential center points are collapsing under the same infinite pressure. Because there's nowhere where non-existence doesn't exist at any size or scale.
What is this infinite pressure?
That's what I said about the infinitesimal points that we were defining mathematically with the 0.00 infinite number of zeros and then a 1 unit, and how that relates to we are existent in a connected infinitesimal digital field. There's an infinite number of 1 units, and they're all turned on.
Okay.
They all have no relatability to the world other than that, or even to each other other than that. You can fit an infinite number of them along the side of a single unit.
Sure.
You can have one of them on either side of that unit that's at the ends of that infinite line.
Sure.
You can't draw that. You can't.
Right.
Like,
Now we're talking about real versus irrational number kind of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the thing is that related to the real world
At
we
some point,
live in,
Hilbert's hotel crashes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. The reason that things still can't move faster than light at that scale is because of connectivity. They get in each other's way. There's too much filling the space for them to move past each other at the speed they technically can move. So they move in tiny little curled up orbitals incredibly faster than the speed of light. But you can't ever measure that or relate to that.
Okay.
Doesn't break the laws of causality at our scale because they only occur within those fields.
What are the predictions of this model?
Well, we predict that we would find space to be expanding when we look at distant objects that are collapsing into their own relative centers a little faster than they're collapsing towards us because of relatable scalability.
Okay. Is there an end to this collapse?
No.
Okay.
No beginning either.
No beginning to the collapse.
There's
so
the
it was
thing.
infinitely
So we can
large
relate
in
it to the
in
Big Bang
past.
model. We can relate it directly to the Big Bang model. So the Big Bang model says that at some point space was the size of a proton.
Okay.
That's when a proton was a field that was 13 billion light years across, and they were all one large interactive quantum scalar field.
Okay, so
Everything is spinning down, collapsing inward slowly. It can get.
so the cosmos is the same size
Yeah,
as
the
it ever
singularity
was.
is the moment when they were all infinitely big, occupying the same infinite space, infinitely
Okay.
diffuse, and that you can't ever get there.
Okay.
And we measure time in proton orbitals, and they get
Okay.
slower the further back you go. So you can't ever get there. There's no beginning.
Right.
That's not a thing.
How consistent would we see over time a difference in the speed of light?
I haven't worked out the higher fields mathematics. I've
Okay.
done this all from basic conceptualization from logical principle.
Okay.
I don't actually know how to construct field equations, although I've been studying them and understand them a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm like, I would love to draw you the mathematical equation and show you how all that works. I need help with that.
Okay.
I'm not there yet.
Cool. If you don't mind my going down an SE path,
Oh, absolutely.
what kind of data would increase your confidence that your model was correct compared
We have a
to
little
the
bit of
standard?
data that's already put me in that direction, and there's some more data that will come out soon. I'm really hoping. The size of the proton shell relative to the electron shell, since it's a little smaller, it should be compressing just a tiny tad, infinitesimal bit faster. And so there should be some relative size differential scalar eventually in the physical field as well as the distance field. So we should see
Okay.
the proton getting smaller over time, which I think we already have some measurements that show that.
Okay.
Our measurements from the 70s and our measurements from today, our current very precise measurement falls outside the range scalar of our much less precise measurement that we were pretty sure for very good reasons that it was inside a range. Now
Okay.
we're very sure it's inside a smaller range that is just a little
outside of that.
outside the
Okay.
old
And smaller.
range. And if that continues
Okay.
over the years, we continue to see that it,
Now we have a prediction.
yes, we do. That's
So
something to look for.
when measured in the 2030s,
Yes.
we should be able to
should be
measure
able to
the
measure
size
a
of
minute
the
differential
the
in
minute
that.
differential there. Oh, you should write that down.
I have. It's on my
Okay,
Facebook
good.
page.
Okay, good.
I log everything.
Good. Okay.
I don't get seen very much. I think I've been suppressed by a number of different organizations that I've spoken out against over the years.
Oh, okay.
Masons Guild, Scientology Church, a number of different religious organizations.
Okay.
I'm an activist for atheism and anti-theism.
Okay.
So I think that lies do a great deal of harm to society, and everybody should be basing things on absolute rationality and not be voting on irrational concepts and
That'd be good.
just how they feel and what they believe.
Yeah, I'd
'Cause it's
much
absolutely atrocious
happier
what's going on now.
If
grew up-
voters were thinking more carefully about what they were voting on, I think we'd be better off.
I grew up in a doctor's household. My
Mhm.
father is a medical researcher,
Mhm.
Dr. S. Mitchell Harmon, and I'm a type 1 diabetic. I've had it since I
Mhm.
was 5 years old.
Okay.
So dealing with medical issues and being very open about it, people who have belief structures that don't include scientific understanding
Mhm.
often will offer suggestions that are potentially dangerous
Mm-hmm. I bet.
and sometimes insist upon them rather vehemently.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been through that quite a few times when I was younger with authority figures, and since I've been older with people
Mhm.
that I can put in their place when they do so much more efficiently than I did when I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
So
You're a lot more
gotten,
empowered now.
gotten quite good at that.
Yes.
And I'm
What
not
is it?
always terribly friendly about it with people that are presenting things that are potentially harmful, like faith healing
Yeah.
of a variety of kinds, because I've seen friends that were diabetics die because they believed in that.
I hear you.
So.
Mm. Yeah. Trust me. Have full faith. Drop your medicines. Uh-oh.
Yep.
Oh, shit. They went off their meds.
They want to take you to a cult compound and take it away from you, so you have to pray. Right? Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a way to test intercessory prayer. It's kind of a high-risk test. I don't think the Human Studies Board would go for it.
I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah, it's unethical. Okay, so on the other direction, what information could you learn that would reduce your confidence that your model was correct?
Well, we have to start with base premises. What could reduce my confidence that existence exists? Possibly a bullet to the head. I might ceasing to exist might
okay.
reduce my confidence that existence exists. Just as a
Sure. Yeah, and I'm not looking to question the I'm going to call it the cogito ergo sum claim. Whether I'm as sure as you or not.
Well, here's the thing. I am not necessarily assured that my experiential existence is definitive of a greater reality beyond my experiential existence. Like, the concept of the simulation hypothesis exists, and I've experienced simulated realities and interacted with them, and inside simulated realities you can find other subset simulated realities.
Yes, you can.
Like the game of life can simulate the game of life with
Yep.
simple interactive constructs. That's a very wonderful one.
Yes,
I played that game when I was a little kid. I just recently saw a video with that redux. I hadn't seen it in a long time. I had it in a math
I did
class
see
when I was
that
in high school.
That video.
Just
I have never
absolutely
played
lovely.
the game.
Veritasium. They're
Veritasium.
great
It's
chance.
awesome. Yeah, a big fan of Veritasium or Veritasium or however
It's pronounced.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to
Okay,
mislabel
so
things.
let's see. So I want to look at what kind of data would move you in relationship to your model versus like the Sabine Hassenfelter's model. She's my favorite physics teacher.
She's one of my favorites too. I love her channel, and she actually recently in one of her videos, "What is Space Expanding Into?" made a reference to
I was thinking
the
about that when you were
material
talking to me
collapse
about it,
concept that matter might be shrinking, and she even said that that's just a matter of
Convention.
convention.
Yeah, totally.
But the thing about the convention is, while from any mathematical viewpoint, you can look at any relativistic interaction from either viewpoint, and the mathematics are going to relate the same to the interaction. But if you look outside that at the cosmological field that those interactions are occurring is, one of those viewpoints is more accurate than the other. So if I have someone in a car driving along, they can think they're still relative to their car and the world is going by them.
Yeah.
And people on the world can see the car going by the world. And we can
Now
actually
we're talking
relate.
Galilean
We
relativity.
can relate to a differential there, though, because from the point of view inside the car, I now have to explain why the world is moving past me at that speed.
Sure.
The whole mass of the whole world is accelerating when I push this little lever. So there's a magical connection. There's somehow enough energy being created to move the whole world past the car. No.
But I can feel the acceleration inside the car.
Yeah, but see, we're just looking at a graph. of the interaction.
Okay.
Like we're looking at what the light looks like. We don't necessarily know. Like we're inside the car with a camera. We can take some measurements. We don't have all that data.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So since we're only taking that limited bit of information from it and not looking at the greater, we can't feel on the galactic scale model that I'm talking about, we can't feel the acceleration towards the shrink. It is getting faster. That's the thing about the expansion of space getting faster, is because as it shrinks, it's a smaller amount of energy with a larger amount outside it than inside it, even though the amounts are still infinite, and it gets smaller faster.
Yeah, my brain broke when you said the amounts were infinite.
Yeah, the amounts are still, it's got an infinite number of scalar differentials inside it, and an infinite number of equivalently scalar differentialed infinities outside it. That's the thing about infinity. It's equally infinite internally as externally, and those are unrelatably equal. They can't relate to each other. And everything that exists is a ratio between them, and those ratios are collapsing.
I'm no longer able to hang on to the map.
Yeah, that no one could be. I can't. I can only do it functionally. You have to reduce all of the large numbers to little references and just hold that reference is a moving thing through an infinite field. It's not, you can't isolate any position in that field or talk about what any one of them means.
But I can
weigh
two different protons and they weigh the same from my perspective.
So here's the thing about differential infinities. We have this concept that some infinities are bigger than others. Yes, countable and non-countable infinity.
Yes.
I would premise that countable infinity, as you count along it, includes an infinite number of uncountably infinite numbers.
Yes.
Okay. So how is it actually a different size?
That busts Hilbert's hotel. Sure.
Yeah. So I think I have my Facebook page post when I posted about that like 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay.
So I've been trying to get this stuff into the common field and putting it wherever I can and sending it to anybody that I thought might be interested for a long time now.
Okay.
And I have had no credential to go behind it, just the facts that I'm presenting. So I get a lot of flack back from people who have spent their lives studying things that then they have to realize aren't actually how things work. When you put a lot of money into studying something that's not right, you might not want to admit that it's not right.
Okay. There's a prediction in there that using their model, they will fail to make predictions that using your model, they would be able to make.
Which this reducing size of the proton is one of those predictions. Their model doesn't predict that, and the differential between. Okay, so gravity. I haven't really explained our gravity as a force.
Okay.
It's really quantum entanglement, because we were talking about how at some point protons were as big as the visible universe. They're quantum fields. They can get bigger and more diffuse.
Okay.
And the parts they're made of can get bigger and more diffuse. There's no smallest scale. So everything has just always been interacting relatedly, basically the way it does. Except that as you get larger and larger, you have more room for the same, what is the same bit today as this bit over here used to be one large bit that was a more diffuse cloud where all the same bits were interacting.
So the number of bits are increasing over time.
They all, like this one collapsed as this one collapsed as this one collapsed as... So they all collapsed through each other. The bits they're made of all spun off of each other and all have interreactive, interrelated spin dynamic.
So does that mean that
they're all quantum entangled?
Okay. Are there more bits in the future than in the past?
I think... no, because if you scale out infinitely large as you keep scaling up, there's still more. I don't know what you mean. Well, that's the thing about bits. A bit is a sliceable unit that relates to other units. So that is any you can make them cubes or pyramids or whatever you can tessellate the space with. You can imagine a bit is. It doesn't necessarily, you have to give it a more precise definition than that. At the infinitesimal level, infinitesimal bits, you can't give them shape or tessellate or tile with them at all. They don't relate.
Okay.
The thing about infinite numbers, so let's imagine pi, right? You can imagine that calculating pi, you can keep doing the calculation forever. There's no reason to imagine that those relationships stop. The numbers just keep getting bigger and bigger.
There's 6 9s in a row. I mean, what are the odds?
Okay.
1 in a million.
So, exactly that. So, I have to stop to laugh for a minute and go
Okay.
back to where I'm talking about pi.
Okay.
So now let's imagine we have an infinitely large number instead of an irrational, infinite like slice. We have 1 with an infinite number of zeros after it. So I would call this the infinite integer.
Sure.
The unitary value for infinite, where we can relate it to other infinites, should we want to.
1 with an infinite number of zeros or
after.
any other digit.
Okay, so let's multiply that by pi.
Sure.
So now we have 3.1, not point,
Sure.
3194. We have all of pi. It no longer has a decimal point.
Yes.
This is a transcendental number. You can't actually say anything about what the number actually is.
Right.
Because you can't calculate to its unitary value. That's an infinite process.
Yes, agreed.
Okay.
Yes.
So these numbers are relatable to each other as ratios.
You mean whole ratio?
Pi itself is the ratio of the infinite version of pi and the infinite unitary value. You divide pi by the 1, 0, and you
Okay.
you get it back out.
Okay.
So irrational numbers are ratios of transcendental irrational numbers. They're not ratios. They're still ratios.
Okay.
They're just not ratios of integers. They're ratios of infinite transcendental numbers, infinite
Okay.
irrationals that
Okay.
are technically integers.
Okay. So e to the I pi minus anyway.
Is she? So yeah. So that says that on the infinite line, if you count rational numbers up and you never stop, you'll have as big of a list as you do with every number between 0 and 1.
Yes.
You can't actually,
Yeah.
That's the proof for one infinity and 1 0, and they're technically the same because you can't ever relate or define either one of them in any meaningful way. And they operate the same way in all mathematical fields. When you use them, they collapse everything into themselves. When you relate them to each other, they do this warble where they switch. In infinity and 0, if you add them to a thing, they stay this.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I were a special kind of purist mathematician and I had my own special rule that says I will never ever actually use infinity in any of my calculations. If a calculation comes to infinity, like you ask me to divide by 0, I'll simply say I have to stop here and pause the game until you take back that calculation.
Well,
and
let's
what
not play
can
that
I
game.
not
Let's
do
take a
if
step-
I don't take infinity?
Let's take a step back, and since you said divide by 0, I want to. You can't really say what the answer is. It's still
I agree.
undefined. I mean,
It's undefined.
but that doesn't mean that the process of slicing the thing apart into an infinitely number of pieces
Yes.
isn't a process. It's just that there's no end to the process, so there's no answer to the calculation.
Okay. So if I choose to never
But
try a calculation that has an infinity in it,
well, I was going to
What am I
ask
then
you
not allowed to
before,
do?
Before we do
Oh,
that,
go
I was
ahead.
going to take a step back because
Okay.
I was going to talk about dividing by 0 as the thing you can divide by 0.
I can.
There is a
Okay.
value you can divide by 0. It's 0.
Yes.
Because if you take 0 away from 0 no times, you still have 0. And if you take 0 away from 0 50 times, you still have 0. And if you take 0 away from 0 an irrational number of times, you still have 0. So the output to 0 over 0 is all possible answers in a list. The infinite list of all potential lists.
Okay.
So 0 over 0 is the core rational, is the rational, as we could understand mathematically, core defining equation of existence. That non-existence divides itself into no pieces, so there's no non-existence anywhere at any size or scale, is Y. That's it. It doesn't get any more pure mathematical proof than that existence
Okay.
should exist and all things should be there at some size or scale. Which gets back to that
Yeah.
scalar differential.
I can't imagine that.
Which gets back to that scalar
I'm not saying it
differential
doesn't
thing.
exist. I mean, I can't figure out how to do anything with math with that.
Well, it goes back to the scalar field differential thing that we were talking
Okay.
about. So interaction. So if I have a gear with 12 spokes on
Yes.
it, and it's 1 meter around,
Okay.
it will turn at 1 meter per second, one time per second. If I have a gear that's
Oh,
a
the
millimeter,
circumference is
if
a
I have
meter.
a gear that's a millimeter around, yes, circumference, a
Okay,
millimeter,
mhm.
yeah. If I have a gear now that's a millimeter around that has
Yes.
12 spokes, turning at the same 1 meter per second,
Yeah.
it's gonna turn 1,000 times
Yes.
in that same 1 second.
Yep.
So if the interactive potential at all scales is the same, but smaller scales occur more quickly,
Okay.
then we're looking at a definitive timeline at all scales. It's collapsing into itself.
Okay.
It's collapsing into the space that already is being filled by what has already been that's collapsing away from it too, and it gets closer and closer to it over time until
Okay.
it matches what it was that it has receded from again. So there's a forward timeline we're looking at if we look at the internal world and the external world that relate to each other in meaningful ways, which isn't necessarily... Yeah, it's very complicated.
It is.
There's 9 scalar realms relative to us that we can
Okay.
define and interact with.
Go ahead.
If we look inside us, there's cellular microscopic scale where
Sure.
things are occurring, and there's a relative number of fields within that scale, but it's one relatable scale.
Fields.
Yeah, like our relatable scale, like insects and ants are pretty small
Yes.
related to trees and mountains.
Yes.
But they're all within our one relatable interactive scale. We don't need a microscope to look
Okay.
at any of those. So within the microscopic field, we need a number of different lenses to look at those different scales
Okay.
effectively. But it's still one scalar field.
Okay. So we individually can interact with things about a billionth the size of us and about a billion times bigger than us.
Yes.
And
yes.
beyond that, it starts getting really difficult.
Yeah, and the scalars include
Okay.
a larger order of magnitude each scale that you go down and each scale that you go up.
Yes.
So it's a planetary scale, and our planet has a biomass field.
Yeah.
Our planet is like the first cell in the pond.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
A biomass field.
Yes, we are life, and our
Okay.
planet is alive basically through us being alive on it.
Okay.
The entire thing stemmed from
And I
one
assume you're talking
iterative.
about the entire biosphere.
Yeah, if you
not just
follow
humans.
the biosphere back, it goes back to a series of chemical interactions, back to a single set of chemical interactions that led to where we are now.
Okay. Sure.
So there's a single biomass field that we are a part of that on the planetary scale over very long periods of time alters the surface of the planet.
Yes.
And we're starting to reach out into space.
Yes.
Yeah, we're about to start consuming the dust around our cell and
Yep.
growing it out bigger and divide it.
Yes.
We are the first cell in the pond that will divide.
Oh, nice. So
Shut
life becoming
sense,
multiplanetary
Henry.
is a big deal then.
And then the larger scale is the next scale up is our planetary field around our star,
Okay.
which is
So all
a
it's
molecular
all-
interactive structure.
All right.
And it's the first self-reproducing RNA. We're going to
So
move
there's
planets
something-
around over a long enough scalar period. We're
Yeah.
going to rearrange and then we're going to go to other places and do the same there and make them like
Free
us and self-reproducing RNA systems.
Mhm.
We, our planet, and us because of us through it.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. So
Future relatable states.
is there
At the next
is
scale
there,
is
is
the
there
atom.
something that I would recognize
galaxy
that
is
is
the
larger
first-
than humans
our
that would be that
galaxy-
RNA?
Our galaxy, I'm going to skip it because I want to
Okay,
go to
go
the
ahead,
third
skip.
scale up because there's 3 scales up and 3
Okay.
scales down. I did the 1 scale down, going the 3 scales up. I'm going to loop back.
All right.
All right, so the galactic scale, our galaxy is an atom. If you were to run 1 trillion years with it spinning and
Okay.
still frame that as a still frame with the trillion years of iterations, you'd see a spinning spherical balloid thing.
Yes.
It would go through a lot of different states and changes,
Yes.
but it would basically be a sphere.
Well, yes.
Yes.
As all
Things at that
approximations in physics.
Yes. Because of state scales and how many times it went through and how many of the things were in each of the outermost positions during the film exposure, it would basically be the sphere of the farthest distance from the center that the things can get at all of the positions they can get to.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's not terribly complicated. So
Okay.
galaxies are like atoms at our scalar field of temporal differential,
Okay.
and we're about to collapse into the Andromeda Galaxy and become the first stable supergalaxy helium atom.
Oh, helium atoms.
Yeah,
so,
we're inside the first collapsing star. We are the first bit about to become the first.
first collapsing star.
Yes. Stars collapsed from hydrogen, collapsed from larger diffuse fields of protons, collapsed from large.
Okay.
Yeah, so everything's always been collapsing the whole time. There was no
Okay.
expansion. It's just things have been getting smaller and tighter and closer together and hotter the whole time.
And hotter.
Well, individual locations. Like a star is much hotter than the background field.
Yes.
The background field is getting cooler in relation. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's isolating heat.
Okay. When everything was fantastically big,
Everything is crystallizing.
it's been cooling. No, it's been getting hotter.
Well, the background field has been cooling while individual locations have been increasing in heat, interacting. Like
Okay.
you get crystallized objects that have a larger amount of energy in a more dense space,
Okay.
and then you get vast areas of empty space.
Okay.
So it's relatable. You're not breaking any laws of thermodynamics or
Right.
creating new.
So this conforms with entropy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's about the fact that we live in an infinite field, so there's always somewhere for more energy to come from. There's no zero, and there's no highest amount.
Okay.
So where how much is keeps moving forever, and at any given scale field that you're looking at, there's motion differential, which creates interactive states where there's collapse and expansion
Okay. Does
relative
this system
to each other.
observe laws of conservation?
Okay.
Okay.
Because as the energetic, so what we think of as a particle is a series of patterned energetic interactions,
Okay.
but we're looking at them as related to each other as being a static state. So they're each the same size, and the interactions inside
They're
them
at
are
least
these little curly
relatively
fields.
the same size.
What's really going on is they're both shrinking and getting closer together. So the interactions are these curly objects moving through space in ways that we can't really take measurements of.
And while they get smaller, the speed of light shifts to count.
Well,
to compensate?
relative to them. Well, the thing is about the relatable distances between them.
Mhm.
So there's a speed the bits inside them are moving relative to them that are what they are relative to each other.
Mhm.
And there's exchange across the spaces between them of energy. So there's the bits moving inside them that are exchanging are moving at the same rates as the bits moving inside them are moving.
Okay.
So as they get smaller, the pattern gets smaller and the distances get smaller and the speeds remain the same. So the relations occur at the same static rate to one another.
Okay. So everywhere in the cosmos, the shrinking is happening at the same rate.
Well, relative to other scalable objects at that same differential. Because things that are collapsing faster than you would have collapsed to where you can't interact with them, and things that aren't collapsing as fast as you would be outside of your relatable field, like beyond the infinite horizon.
I have understood almost all the words you've used,
So I
and
want
the model
to
in my head is very confused.
explain a black hole to you.
Go ahead.
Okay, so there's things that are collapsing faster than us.
Okay.
Their scalable rate of interaction, the fields they're collapsing into and how fast they can move through those fields, they can no longer reach us. Their infinite horizon, because they're collapsing into a space they're moving around in,
Mhm.
they can't ever get to us. No amount of their energetic interactions can ever push them back outside that space.
Okay.
So we don't see what's going on in there anymore.
Right. Okay. So that accounts for the event horizon.
That accounts for the event horizon. And the thing about the data exchange is that the size of the event horizon relative to what went into it and its exact shape dynamic, because it's not really a perfect sphere, there is stuff inside it going on, and there is a shell dynamic, and there is not an actual perfect point at center. It's just
Okay.
that shell dynamic is so infinitesimally small that you can't get measurements up the differential to see the curvature of the wave of the event horizon. You can't even see the event horizon. you can only see where things are being shredded into the event horizon.
Okay.
And a lot of that data is being frozen in the way between you and seeing the event horizon. When I say frozen, I mean, so just outside the event horizon, an interaction occurs that creates a ray of light that is going directly away from the black hole.
Okay.
But because the black hole is pulling it in, it's going in this nice little circle around the black hole.
Okay. So light's orbiting the black
Light's
hole.
orbiting the black hole outside the event horizon.
At the square root of 2 outside the event
So
horizon.
every event the black hole has interacted with still exists as a light wave ray just outside the event horizon. And because light is going in all directions from center, some of those rays are escaping in spiral orbitals outwards. So there's an amount of distorted light that's been around the black hole trillions of billions of times
Okay.
that references every event that's occurred inside that fell into the black hole.
Okay, so you've solved the information paradox by that.
Cha.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that it? Or redshifted light? Because as the particles that used to exist were larger, their interactions created light waves that were larger, that are still the same size they were then when they were created. Further back in time you look, the more redshifted the light.
Okay, so the older the light,
The larger it
the
would have
larger
been.
it would have been, therefore the redshiftier
Because it's a
it was.
waveform interaction between the collapsing proton and the collapsing electron, where one collapses a little faster than the other or a little slower than the other. Either it absorbs or gives off light.
Okay.
Okay, so in the interactive differential, only when they're collapsing at about the same ratio do they stay in related fields, which is why we find the world to exist in quantum, with a quantum nature, with definable objects and unit relationships. And we find existence to exist because of the relatability of the scalar differentials and the fields all shrinking at the same speed.
Brain just crashed.
Yeah, I know, that's
Yeah,
a
that
little
one.
much, but
that one I
we can
did
slow
not.
it down
I
and
did
parse
not
it.
understand.
Okay, so the proton is collapsing and the electron is collapsing,
Yes.
and they're both spiraling, the one spiraling in towards the other, which is spiraling in towards its own center. And if you add some energy to one so that it's pushed in faster, it stops relative to the other one when it's in a relatable field. There's
Okay.
a field of orbitals that don't match up. So this one's going around 50 times, and this one's going around 5 times, and they match up.
Okay.
This one's going around 50 times, and this one's going around 7 times, and they don't match up. There's irrational sets of interactives where because of their orbital cycles, they're pushing on each other. The little
Okay.
bits of the one that orbits exceed its sphere, because there's little tiny bits that are orbiting in and out like comet orbits,
Okay.
that aren't planetary orbits.
Okay.
And they're interactive. It's not, the whole thing is one thing. The whole universe is one relatable connective field.
Okay.
So our measurements of the things as discrete is because of their ratio interactions at scalars where they define themselves relative to each other in meaningful ways, like music.
Like music.
Like music. We listen to music. When the number of repetitious vibrations per repetitious vibration match, it sounds good. When
Yes.
there's an irrational differential, it doesn't sound good because they're
Right.
bumping into each other. The airwaves are grating. It's
Yep.
not a smooth interaction that feels nice. It's
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
This is
moderately
relatable.
large primes
This is
we
relatable to
dislike.
the system
Yes,
of,
yes.
of quantum interactions, because when they push on each other in ways that are grating, they push each other apart or pull each other in, depending on how the push-pull reaction works.
Okay.
So that's when the electron field, when you add some energy to the electron field so that it has more pull in, because the energy is spin related and the spin relation is going to push them towards each other, so the field of interaction is going to be more pushed in by a greater amount of energy being added.
Okay, so what's the half-life of scale? At what rate does something get half as big as it used to be?
Oh, that's the thing about relatable scales of time. Time is measured with atomic. We measure time in those atomic orbitals.
Yes.
So time is relative to time.
Yes.
It's very hard to calculate that. We can calculate our close ratio interactions, and we can calculate how differentiated like at distances, those interactions are slightly different. Like close by, so things are collapsing. I explained gravity, right? Gravity is quantum entanglement because the particles.
I didn't understand how the force of gravity or the apparent force of gravity.
The apparent force of gravity.
From...
Because the bits that the protons are made of were all part of one large interactive field that all bounced off each other and pushed themselves in the directions they're going in right now, in the orbitals they're in right now. So this internal collapsing orbital shell series and this internal collapsing orbital shell series, each one of them collapsed from a large cloud through each other. The clouds turned into raindrops, but each of the raindrops has bits from every part of the cloud.
During the time that we've been talking, we've been getting closer, according to your model.
So gravity is
closer?
explained.
Are we twice as close as when we started talking?
To explaining gravity and relativity, we're almost there. This is the final hurdle to explain gravity and relativity, because you have to explain proton structure, and that's part of the collapse. So there are these little orbital bits that are related to each other. So I'm going to use an analogy. Let's imagine I have a top. We're going to forget the cloud model. Just a top, like a spinning thing, like a dreidel, right? So let's say I take the top and I cut a line down through it, but instead of going a straight line, I cut a little zigzag back and forth through it. So now I have two jaggedy, weird tops that don't spin quite right.
They don't spin at all, yeah.
Yeah, well, you can if you spin them fast enough. They spin in little cyclones and they vibrate around.
Okay.
If you cut them, right? A little spiral cut through them and spin them apart like a screw.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
As long as they something like had their center of gravity over the spin contact on the disc.
So let's take the two tops from the one top and spin them and look at their spins being related. They have relation to each other. The one's heavier in places and the other's heavier in places.
Okay.
If we start them near each other in the same orientation and give them the same amount of force, the thing that they do differently than they would have done if they were still the one top is related. The one wobbles one way and the other wobbles the other way because they have bits inside them that are related to the bits inside the other bit. This is the cloud model. So this cloud has lots of bits that are bouncing off each other, and these ones came all the way to here, and these ones came all the way to here. And so every particle, every proton, is a series of these quantum orbital sets that have related interactions. They've bounced off of and spun off of other particles that were collapsing into all of the other protons.
Okay.
So they're all quantum entangled. Their internal orbital structures are related to each other. They move towards where there's more of where the other ones are. They have their orbital patterns, because they all collapsed from this one field that was spinning for a long time. Each of them was a part of that one field, and they all spun inward into their own relative centers from that one field. They all have spin relation to each other that they were bouncing off of if you keep going back through time far enough.
Oh, okay.
So the cloud of these ones orbiting and the cloud of these ones orbiting, nearer ones interacted with each other more recently, so have more of each other's motive energy still involved in their interactions.
Oh.
So nearer ones are more attracted to each other than farther ones are.
Okay, so I've got something that's on a parabolic commentary kind of a thing, and it was a long ways away for a long time. As it gets closer, it becomes more entangled and more attracted?
It goes through a series of interactions. Well, if it hits something.
Well,
that's about gravitational interactions. Gravitational interactions are a sign of the quantum entanglement of spin connective interactions in the past. So you can't relate gravity to quantum interactions. They're not. It's not.
You're saying the one causes the other.
Yeah. Okay, electromagnetism and quantum dynamics cause us to view gravity to exist.
Do you know the one I mean?
Not gravity causing quantum entanglement to exist. There is no quantum gravity.
Okay. Are you familiar with Oumuamua? We had a visitor that comes sailing through, and it's on a hyperbolic trajectory.
It spun through very quickly. We had a lot of energetic interaction, and it dissipated very quickly.
Was it quantum entangled more recently?
It picked up and interacted with energy in our Than what? More recently than what?
You're saying that things that were near each other
Interact more recently than things that are further apart.
Right, and that accounts for the difference of gravity.
And we're talking about a scalable differential. So when we talk about orbital series, a distance between objects is about their total distance over many orbital sets and their average distance, not their individual distance at a single moment unit in time necessarily. So they connect with each other.
But yet I can calculate their gravitational attraction in any given moment.
Well, when they're in that field state is about orbital sets interactive. So they had orbital set interactives, and now they're coming back through a series of repeats from their previous sets. So that's when the series of bounces inside them causes them to accelerate more quickly in those directions towards each other than they would have when they're greater distances apart too, because it's about cycling sets of orbital repetitions inside them as well as relatable distance.
What if this was the first time Oumuamua ever came within 20 light years of us?
But that's the thing about the individual bits of it. If you go far enough back in time, the individual protons of it were cloud fields that were all interactive. So there's no first time that things interacted.
Okay, so if I go back to the Big Bang, they were all interacting.
The Big Bang is infinitely far in the past. This is the thing. That's about the car moving through the world or the world moving around the car issue. The Big Bang is just viewing what happened from really far away as if it was really small and happened really fast.
Okay.
We're seeing all of what happened in that one moment. All of what happened over billions of trillions of quintillions of keep multiplying the scalar beyond anything you can imagine to infinite, and yeah. That 1, 0, 0, infinite number of zeros. It's a moment when every particle was infinitely far apart from every other particle and had no interactions. And I don't think that's actually a moment, because there's no smallest size. So as the proton gets bigger, so do the hadrons that make it up. And so does whatever makes them up that we can't take any meaningful measure of. And so does the whatever that's made of. So the space is always full of some interactive amount of energy doing some interactive amount of things at some point in the scalar field of the single infinite timeline, because there's only one infinity and it's going through one timeline and starts over inside itself an infinite number of times and never gets to its ending. Even though start is an odd word for an infinite.
Sure. Yeah, my intuition and imagination is completely incapable of dealing with this. I cannot actually imagine physical infinities.
Well, no, because that's the thing. That's the thing about the event horizons. Like, because you're collapsing forever, and there's a speed you can move around within the field you're collapsing into, there's an event horizon that you could never reach even over the infinite time period, that there is stuff beyond that you can't relate to, even though it's also inside you, smaller scale, moving faster than you can relate to, because you collapsed from that field and contain data of that external, and are inside that external, collapsing into fields that are collapsing away from each other even faster, all containing the whole infinite data set at some infinitesimal level, and that's unrelatable at any scale. You can't ever relate to infinity with unitary values. If I have a size and an object, like one card, I have a stack of cards here, so I have one stack of cards. I'm going to define that as a size and a shape. I'm going to try to account for how many bits of it are there, infinitely many cuts I can make to it until it's not, I can't even cut them apart.
You're saying that it's infinitely
because the bits
divisible.
are moving so fast I can't cut them anymore. That doesn't mean that I can't, if I could slow down time enough to hold a bit still, I smaller than the division in the nerve they were creating. The points
Okay.
of contact that create the cut have to be within the bounds of the object,
Okay.
or you're not cutting the object, you're crushing it. Like, it may shred when
Okay.
it's crushed. You may push pressure down on it and it may force it to divide, but you haven't sliced into it and made a nice cut. You have distorted its nature and done something. Like, you might
Okay.
be able to smash an atom, but you can't smoothly cut it in two.
Sure.
Because it's not
Okay.
even really an object. It's a set of smaller objects moving in a bunch of orbitals so fast that from your relative interactive point of view, anywhere you push on it, it's always going to have bits in that location. There's an amount of pushback in all of those spaces for every amount of push that you can apply to it, because you're also made of these interactive things that are filling that much of
Okay.
the relation between infinite objects is unitary objects. You can never count up to infinity out of unitary objects. But if infinity exists,
Okay.
its relative ratio relations will create all kinds of unitaries, an infinite number of unitary sets.
Yeah, if infinities exist.
We would find existence to exist pretty much the way we find it with the scalar relational set that I can look at to the edges
Could
of where I can
existence
look
happen
at.
without infinities?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't think you can have a finite existence. Well, how would that work? Like a smallest size you couldn't cut apart anymore.
I cannot. I
Can you-
cannot
can you
either
imagine a thing
a physical
that doesn't
infinitesimal
have-
or
like if you can
physical
view it
infinite.
as a thing,
Yeah.
there's parts of it you can divide it into. It's a square. I
I
can
get
cut.
down to particle
that's-
physics and I don't have.
That's
I don't
about the
have any knowledge
sizeless
to go
point
any smaller.
interaction, the mathematical concept of sizeless points that we were relating to earlier, and how those would have to work.
Right.
If they're sizeless, shapeless, they can't neither move nor exchange energy.
Within
nor
math, I
decay.
can understand it. Within
They
physics,
would be
I can't.
outside of the laws of thermodynamics because they can't give up any energy without ceasing to exist, and zero can't exist.
When a photon comes into existence,
Well, that's the thing about the balance point of infinity, is there isn't one. That's why the background state of virtual particles everywhere all the time, vibrating into and out of relative relatable existence. Because there are other things shrinking slightly faster and slightly slower than us, and they are passing through us in both directions relative to us as we shrink through them, or they shrink through us. And their relative interactions are the virtual particle background everywhere.
it sounds to me like those different scales are so remote from each other that they are overlapping multiple worlds.
That would be the non-interactive multiple worlds, because you can't relate to or
Right.
interact with virtual particles or alter them in any way. They've gone through too many differential changes from too many differential worlds, and any interaction you're going to attempt to apply to them is going to be a minute part of their virtual particle state in all of their worlds, not an actual interaction. And it doesn't matter whether you did it or didn't, because there's an infinite number of interactings, and in the one you didn't, there's one you did, and in the one you did, there's one you didn't, and. No effect, no affectability,
Okay.
no relatability.
No influence between the different
Yep.
scalar
Yeah.
scales. Okay.
But the infinite worlds also would exist necessarily scaled inside each other, because, like I was saying about scalability, you get down small enough, and every scalable, relatable interactive has occurred an infinite number of times in an infinite number of positions related to an infinite number of, and that's inside every proton. That's that smallest possible scalar world where everything has already, is already, will already have been happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, should I? Do you have an opinion on the standard model of particle physics?
I'm pretty sure that our ability to measure and interact with those has given us some really solid foundations for understanding their interactions. But because we relate them to the solid state model of physics, with the proton as an individual unit value of a size, all of our mathematics about them, where we try to take that from, they don't necessarily work the way we want them to.
They don't work?
Well, not the way we want them to.
They don't?
We want them to explain material interactions better. The quantum scalar fields, we can make predictions of what happens when we produce them, when we hit things into each other. What I'm talking about is we want them to explain gravity, which
Yes.
yeah, that's what I said about the standard model includes the expanding space relative to the static proton,
Yes.
instead of the collapsing proton relative to space not really being a thing.
Okay. Do you agree that the standard model of particle physics makes all the predictions on the small scale, and that general relativity makes the predictions on the large scale?
But the predictions general relativity makes on the large scale aren't entirely accurate.
To what degree are they inaccurate?
Okay, so when we're measuring our values for gravity,
Yes.
we're looking at the things in their related ratio states. The particles are collapsing and getting closer together.
I don't know how
Okay.
I'm not familiar with looking for these things in their related ratio states.
Well, let's imagine for a minute a visual you can use,
Okay.
because there's a very simple concept. So I've got an orbital field with one star at the center and one very large planet that's about a third the size of the star orbiting it very closely. So
Okay.
we can just have two objects in our orbital field.
Orbiting a common
Big
very
star,
Mhm.
small planet orbiting it, about the third the size of it, about 3 times the distance from it. As we'll just put them close together, you know what I
Okay,
mean?
three
So-
times the radius.
Yeah. So 3 times the radius of the center object from the object, and a third the size. So very simple visual.
Okay.
Okay, so the one's just going around the other, and we look at the related forces at different points in their orbit that it looks like it's making it curve in this nice smooth direction.
Yes.
Okay, now let's imagine that I am in a starship and I am above the plane,
Okay.
like the orbit's
so
going around, and I'm going to go away
90
from
degrees
the
to the
plane of
plane of-
orbit. I'm lined up with the star, and I'm moving away from the star at a 90-degree angle to the plane
Okay.
of orbit. So I'm going to video the...
Sure.
So as I get farther away, what appears on the video to happen?
They appear to get smaller.
Yeah, they get smaller and closer together.
Yes.
Now,
and
I am going to...
and slower because I'm moving away, and so if I'm moving away at half the speed of light, they appear to be roughly moving at half the rotational rate.
Yes, there's a
Okay.
relational there. I was going to explain relativity and particle orbital lengths.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Let's get back to that first, because, yeah, I'm halfway through this. But that was actually it. I'm all the way through that. Because
Okay.
it's about the fact that my view of the star, the one's circling inward toward the other, and they're both shrinking. I can't tell the difference between my frames of reference of what is happening and what is real, right?
Special relativity. Did you accelerate?
Yeah, the thing about
Yeah.
it, the thing about it shrinking away from me as I move away from it is that it is relative to my shrink into my new center in my new position, its shrink into its center in its old position related to me. It's maintaining a smaller size relative to me at an unreachable distance until I'm in its scalar field. Until I approach it again and at its scalar differential interactive. Because everything's shrinking all the time.
I understood all those words, and I have not built a model in my head based on it. Sorry. My imagination doesn't
When
turn
you're
your words
touching
into
the
a model
tree,
that I
it has
can
a
think of.
one-to-one differential with you. You get close enough to it, and you have to use tools to look at anything larger than the scale interactive that you're holding. Like I'd have to use a magnifying glass. I'd look at the relationship between the light exchange on the surface of the magnifying glass to look at the tree any larger than I can get to it and interact with it at my scalar.
Okay.
Scalar interactive fields, like how much of what fits in how much of what.
Okay.
So if I get farther away from something, more of it fits in my scalar field.
Okay.
It
So
has
if I'm-
shrunk relative to me. That
I'm
is a
examining the tree,
relational, rational definitive.
and I shine a particular color of laser on a part of it. I can see down to, if I really do my microscope well,
yeah.
down to the wavelength of the laser. Not really smaller than that.
Yeah,
So now when I get smaller, I have to go with a higher wavelength
but
laser.
what are you going to
with
use to
more
do
energy.
that?
A different color laser.
Yes, but there's a point at which the wavelength of the laser is going to be disintegrating the tree.
Yeah, as soon as I get
Not
up
gonna very
into
clear image of the
ionizing.
object at that point.
Right. As soon as I get into ionizing, my energy relationship has to.
That's that thing about using something smaller to cut the thing, and the smaller thing's moving even faster than the thing, and at some point you get to infinite numbers of cuts, so the thing just vanishes. It burns!
It burns.
Yeah, it turns to an expressive cloud outward relative to you.
Okay. Okay. I thank you for the conversation. I've enjoyed it. I'm fully
I do
confused.
like fire.
Do I like fire? Yes.
No, I said
like
I
fire.
do like fire, but yes, it's a question too. I could show off.
Uh-huh. Oh, nice.
Yeah, I love fire.
Cool. Yeah, I've taken a lot in, and I have not been able to build a thing that I can manipulate. Yeah.
Can you build a thing you can manipulate with the expanding space model?
Sure.
Can you rationally
Yeah, I
graph that?
I have a clear understanding
Because
in a gross sense of
my-
cosmology all the way down to particle physics down to the Planck scale.
my rational graph of the expanding space model is, let's say we have just a graph of a cube, and
Okay.
we put a few balls in the cube that are small enough we can fit like 4 of them in there, some distances from each other.
Okay.
And now we're going to start making the cube get bigger, and the things are going to stay the same relative distances from each other and the sides of the cube as the cube gets bigger.
Why?
Well, because this is our model for what happens when we're looking at space and galaxies and the distances between them.
It's not mine, no.
We have the amount of space is getting bigger,
Yes.
and the things are staying the same size.
Yes.
And
In
they're
measured
staying
light seconds, yes.
relatively the same positions to whatever the infinite
there's-
boundary.
They're
Yeah.
moving a little.
Yeah.
They're accelerating some.
The spaces between them are getting bigger, right?
At the large enough scale, yes.
Okay, so that's what I'm
Locally,
saying.
there's
so we have the
they're
balls.
great attractors. Mm-hmm.
We make the box a little bigger, so we have to move the balls a little further apart so they stay in the same relative. If we were to grid the box up, they're staying in the same grid location as we make the box bigger. Like the box is made of a number of smaller box units.
Okay.
This is just a model. We don't actually have a box. We're
Right,
just
right.
doing a graphical model on a computer here.
Yes.
So as I make the box bigger,
Yes.
if I scale my viewpoint out to stay with the box, as the box gets bigger, what does it look like?
Looks like it's expanding on parts per billion per year.
It looks like all of the balls in the box are getting smaller and further apart.
If I'm backing up, yes.
Yes, like I said, if you scale out with the box field, like the box model, the box is expanding. So if
Yeah.
I keep my camera angle fixed to the box as a viewpoint, so it's 1-to-1 ratio. So
Okay.
the screen is the box.
Okay.
So as the box gets bigger, with the screen staying as being the box, everything in the field gets smaller. That's what the model says mathematically is happening, is everything is shrinking
Relative to what?
relative to the total,
Why is not the total getting larger?
because the total isn't an object.
Doesn't matter.
Yes, it does.
It is space-time.
It isn't an object.
Okay.
It's not a thing relative to another thing that the one can push on the other. It's the total of existence that has no relatable edge or center or value or cannot be. That is not a thing.
It's a field in quantum theory.
Yes, but it's the
Series of
total
quantum
field, which includes all fields, including itself. So cannot.
Sure.
It's not. You can't push on it. That's an impossible illogical of its premise. Yes. It's not relatable. distances are relatable
Okay.
to the objects we measure them with,
Yep.
or the amount of time energy takes to cross them, which is an amount of exchanges relative to other exchanges relative to, we're counting things relative to things and calling that space. An amount of
Sure.
exchanges through the other
Sure.
stuff was there. There isn't any empty space. It's an amount of exchanges of energy through full space. They have to... The infinitesimal bits can't actually move, but on any scale you're looking at them at, they have an amount of vibrational energy that they are pushing on the whole universe around them that is being pushed back on.
Vibrational energy.
Yeah, at any scalar that is relatable. What we can relate to is pushing on something else. Anything you look at is an amount of... It itself is made of things pushing on other things that makes you able to... It's an amount of push, energy.
Is there pull?
Well,
If this is holding still, is it both? Is it full of both push and pull?
what is pull?
Pull might be gravity.
Well,
Pull might
if I
be
have
A
a rope,
minus and a positive
I
being
am
drawn together.
pushing on the rope in the direction. I am not... It's just push. It's just another thing to call push in the other
Tension
direction.
versus compression.
Well, that's push in different directions still. That's
Okay.
just as push from the outside or push from the inside.
Sure, then that's what
I'm
I mean.
pushing the thing toward me instead of pushing the thing away from me. I just call it a different thing.
Okay.
What is pull but push is what I meant.
What is pull but push apart?
Hmm. Yeah, it's still just push. There's an amount of motion in a direction. If they're related in opposed directions, you get... They have to... each one of them has an amount of direction, and if they get to a single position, and one's pushing this way and one's pushing that way, they're going to go this way.
Okay.
There's an amount of interaction of push that causes an interaction.
Yeah.
So there's the rope is made of bits that are curled around each other and tugged around each other, and when I pull on it, each one of them pulls on each other, and that's an amount of push in my direction that I'm creating by pushing in toward my direction
Okay.
from a slightly outside. I've put part of me outside my center and am pulling/pushing the thing in toward me.
Okay.
It's just motion. It's all the same.
I hear push is equivalent to force.
Yeah, motion. Motion in a direction.
What if
An amount
what
of...
if something is so? Is there motion?
Well, yes, it's vibrational. It's in the space. There's an amount of tension now. There's things going back and forth both ways.
Okay.
You're creating pressure, which is creating
Yeah.
heat, which is causing an exchange, which is forcing things inward into that space, is causing an expression from that space. There's always...
Okay.
The relation is always going in both directions.
Okay.
That's Newton's laws
Yes.
there again. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Equal and opposite force.
Okay.
Yeah. Force and reaction force. Same.
Yeah, I'm not arguing with any observable principle. I'm arguing with how we interpret one of our observations.
Mm-hmm.
We interpret the observation of the distances between galaxies getting larger relative to the sizes of the galaxies
Mhm.
as meaning that the space is expanding rather than that the galaxies are getting smaller.
Okay. Well, I really look forward to seeing how big or small things become in
So
2030.
close to explaining relativity. Oh, it's one more sentence.
Okay.
So we have a proton that is this cloud of little orbitals. And if we would imagine the cloud of orbitals in a single location, they have a length. There's an amount of distance the energetic bits have traveled in the space. There's an orbital series. Per orbital series, the
Okay.
particle decays. Little per orbital series.
Oh.
So every time it's doing these little spiral sets, it gets a little bit smaller and gives off a little bit of energy.
Oh.
This is an observable occurrence. This occurs even within the scalar field because it's collapsing. Things are collapsing and things are collapsing because at every scale things are collapsing inward at every possible scalar field and every possible differential. So, but the relatable ratios of patterns made up
So
in that
older
collapse wave.
galaxies are more dense?
No, I'm talking about particle fields at this point. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So particle fields, the older ones are more dense?
No, newer one. I'm sorry.
Newer ones are more dense?
No, they don't get more dense. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Because everything they're made of is smaller waveform interactions that are turning into the relationship between things is always being maintained. There's minute amounts of differentiation across fields, like because as this pattern gets smaller and more condensed, it's going to give up a little bit. Those are two different relationships. We're talking about two different relationships.
Oh, okay.
That's why I'm trying
something.
to put them together into one thing, and they
Okay.
don't go that way.
Okay.
That's so. The orbital field states and their collapse relative to each other as they get smaller and closer together.
Mm-hmm.
Nearer ones stay ratioed better than farther away ones do because they're collapsing into their own centers more. The greater the scalable distance.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're looking 5 billion light years away, you're gonna see a lot more space accruing a lot more quickly because their connection to us and approach towards us is slower than their approach towards their own center. They're still approaching us. They're collapsing into their own centers and getting closer to us. They're just not getting closer to us as fast as they're collapsing into their own centers.
Right. So as long as our viewpoint shrinks along with our interrelationships, it will appear that there's the distance is expanding between things.
I was trying to talk about relativity at the particle scale.
Okay.
So we would imagine a particle as being this set of orbitals, like a frame of a particle being the solid ball is actually a series of orbital lengths.
Okay.
So if we take frames of it over time, we see more complex orbital series have decays. They do things that causes them to disperse.
Right.
So
right.
we
The
have
complex
atomic,
orbital series has decays.
We
It has to give
account
off
for
energy
time.
to make that.
We
that
account for
decays.
time in those decay rates and in energy exchanges.
Okay. So where does the energy go?
It just exchanges. It's moving around. It's still doing a thing. It's just dispersing.
Dispersing to where?
If there's a greater energy state and it's I'm sorry, what?
Dispersing to where? When
To other locations in the field. There's nothing's
when
leaving the
something
field.
gets- When something
Nothing
gets,
ever exits the field.
nothing ever exits the field. So when something gets smaller,
But
there's
a
some
particle-
kind of something coming off.
A
There's
particle is a
energy.
part of the field.
Right. So you gotta
So things can leave the particle or enter the particle. Like you can shoot the particle with a lot of energy and cause it to burst apart. You can hit particles together and cause them to smash out. The energy is no longer in the particle at that point because the particle isn't the particle anymore.
Okay. When
You
things
know,
get smaller, they give off photons or neutrinos or some particle of energy.
That occurs. No.
No.
When the electron field gets smaller faster than the proton field, their interaction causes the release of energy.
Of a photon.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the standard collapse of the two fields at scale when they're in ratio to each other does not cause energetic release. No.
So they don't have to lose energy to get smaller.
No, they have to gain energy to get smaller
Where does the energy come from?
from external sources entering them. There's other energy, there's interactive energy.
And that source of energy is the infinite energy you referred to on the outside of the event horizon.
Well,
somewhere.
as the pattern gets smaller,
Yes.
it has to then get smaller faster because it's still inside the same state, but at a smaller. It keeps getting smaller and smaller, faster and faster, but the relational interactions of energy fields at its scale getting faster at the rate it doesn't change because they're getting faster and faster at the same rate as it's getting faster and faster. This is about the temporal interaction and how we measure time with particle interactions. So if I have a still particle, I was going back to that one sentence I was going to do before I got into 4 other tangents. So I have a still particle. So I have a field of tracks. I'm just going to make it really simple. I'm going to trace this thing in a little figure 8. I'm going to call that figure 8 is now that's that particle. We're going to imagine it does it a million times like a spirograph.
Okay.
But we're going to simplify it down to just one little orbital. So I have this
Okay,
figure eight
so I'm
thing.
looking at the.
This figure eight thing.
I'm looking at like the average track.
Okay,
Of
we're just
a
going to reduce
gazillion.
it to an infinity. Right? Okay, it's a figure eight.
Okay.
It goes around the spiral loop. The figure eight is a three-dimensional object. It doesn't
Okay.
actually pass. It follows a track back and forth.
Okay.
Okay. So we can loop this little thing. It has a size. That's the particle.
Okay.
All right. So now, let's say the particle's moving through space. What happens to
Okay.
that figure eight track? It doesn't stay in that location, does it? It has a start location
That's
that
a
follows
relativistic
this
question.
path. So we have the particle is now moving through space. So it's following this figure eight path, but now in a direction. It's not following it just in a little spot. It's following it through space in a
Right. There's
direction.
some kind of spirally.
Okay.
Yeah.
That spiral is a longer length than that figure eight would be.
Yes.
That longer length of that spiral slows down the decay rate of the particle.
The particle has a decay rate. What is the decay rate? Is there a half-life?
We can measure half-lives of atoms. We can
Okay.
measure half-lives of complex molecular structures and atomic structures.
Okay.
Like that's a thing we can look at.
Right. So I've got some uranium
So,
over here.
As
and
we
I've got
speed
some.
the uranium up and accelerate it, the decay
Plutonium-238.
rate slows
Yeah.
down. That is what we find. That's relativity in a nutshell.
The decay rate slows down.
Yes, that's why when we have atomic clocks in space versus on the planet, the ones in space go a hair slower, or is it a
Okay.
hair faster? That's right. Yeah, they're accelerating
special
more
makes it go
slowly,
one
so
way
they
and
move.
general makes it go the other.
Yeah, right. I did the
And one of
scratch
them's
that
like
reverse
3
Willy
times the
Wonka
other.
style.
And I'm
It's
sure
always,
there's probably an
it's always
altitude
looking at everything in a
which-
mirror.
at which they cancel. Yeah, I think.
Oh, yeah, there would be, wouldn't there?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is, and I don't care. It doesn't matter as long as GPS works and I can find my way home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would find relativity to be the way we find it to be.
Yes.
Based on
Yes.
the model that the lengths of the atomic orbitals at a fixed speed, the speed of light, the exchange
Yes.
of information, when those orbitals get longer, the particles, they take longer to complete sets of orbitals because
Yeah.
part of their energy and direction is in a new. It's a no bending of time or space required.
Oh,
Bending of time or space is a viewpoint from the materials as being static rather than being collapsing, because their relations are static, so we can look at them as being static. Because two things that are getting smaller, if I have a one cube that's half the size of the other cube, doesn't matter how small they get, the one's always half the size of the other one, and it takes the same number of moves to get around the other one. And it's really irrelevant.
okay.
Unless you're going to spend billions of dollars looking for dark matter and dark energy based on the principle that there actually exist in things that you could find or demonstrate.
Yeah, we are spending billions of dollars looking for dark matter and
And there isn't any of it. Definably from
okay,
the
so
model.
That's one of the predictions of your model is that there is
Isn't
no...
any dark matter or dark energy needed to explain the apparent expansion of space or the apparent greater force of gravity at the edges of galaxies than in our local environment.
So yours also takes care of dark matter.
Yes, because like I said about the collapse wave being a much stronger thing than the g-force we measure, that model is going back to that I was going to finish explaining with the one thing circling around the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
If we look at them as fixed, we get a measurement of the force interaction. Let's say I take that video again of the guy moving away from it, and I look at it from his perspective that they're actually getting smaller. And I
Okay.
ask, well, what's the force dynamic for that? What explains that?
This is the best news I've heard all day. Because with this, using...
modified gravity and the multiple
Mon.
references for the
You
different
should be
positions,
able
you should
to
be able to
then-
map the potential gravitational constant, possibly even the total
Yeah.
energetic constant of the universe.
Yes,
Possibly.
possibly.
I don't know for sure about that one. It may be that there's a graph curve that leads off to an infinite, but we know the scalar.
You're happy with infinites?
Yeah, I'm happy with
Just 'cause
infinites
I'm not
and
doesn't
knowing the
matter.
direction that the infinite is in at the scale it increases at.
Hey, sir, is he friendly?
Oh, he's very friendly,
Can I
yes.
pet him?
Yes.
Hey,
His name is Prince Charming.
Hey, Prince.
Hey, puppy.
Wow, you
here, boy.
so handsome.
Come here, boy.
My dog is a little off
Yeah.
camera here.
What is that?
Yeah, that's okay.
Kitty.
That's good. Okay. That's a great result. So now
We got there.
we have a potential way to test your hypothesis.
Several.
Yeah. So that's the thing I'm the most interested in now.
Testability is my favorite thing.
Indeed. Yeah. So with that, I look forward to seeing any math that you show, and I might have to learn math.
Yeah, I'm
to
gonna
learn what
have
you
to
mean.
learn a lot more because I've learned.
Yeah. This is over my head.
Yeah, it's the basic principles of it and the logical principles of it.
Yeah.
I'm very grounded in. The where you have to go with mathematics, and the thing is, I've studied math my whole life.
Okay.
I really have. I used to play with four-dimensional object rotation when I was in high school. I
Nice.
had this wonderful program called Spin It,
Mhm.
which mapped hyperspheres and the tesseract and hyper. Why am I forgetting the word?
I know what you mean.
Ovoids and
And telling them the names
tetrahedrons. Right, I should
isn't
know
going to help
that
the rest
word.
of us. Yeah.
Yes. As blocking on one of my favorite words is great.
Oh,
Right?
I love
like,
tetrahedron.
Yeah. The hypertetrahedron is one of my favorites because it's the simplest, and you can actually see the rotations better than the hypercube. Because the hypercube has too many aspects.
Okay.
You're doing like 3 different rotationals at once.
Yeah, the four-sided
Yeah.
dice is my favorite.
Yeah. And with the 4-dimensional iteration of it and doing the rotations of it, it gives you a much better understanding of temporal relations and
Okay.
yeah, how things warp relative to each other in time is mapped very well by those 4-dimensional models. Even though space-time isn't an actual thing,
Okay.
the relations between different moments in time can be mathematically modeled from that aspect ratio very realistically.
Okay. He turned on a timer, and I'm gonna honor it, whatever that means.
Oh, yes, we are at an end.
We are at an end. Thank you for this
so
conversation.
much. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. I have learned a good bit about how you see it. I'm not sure I could build a model, but I could probably answer some questions that people had if they asked me, what did you think? Oh, it might be like this, it might be like that. I'm not sure about this, but this thing was. Okay.
I've been consuming all the material I could about the high-end problems in physics and what we're looking for and what we're doing since I was in high school and before even. I watched Cosmos when I was a kid, the original one, and I watched the more recent one with Neil deGrasse Tyson with all the wonderful digital pretty pictures and everything and him reading the same script. It was just absolutely lovely.
Yeah.
Anyway, cool. Oh,
The chair's up.
oh, they are stuck to something. Oh, I see.
What is stuck?
Oh, the chair is attached to the.
Oh, yes.
I was about to try to lift it back to stand up, but I went, I can't do that.
Nope.
It does
can't
not
do
work.
it. It's all stuck.
Can I do it? Hey, little puppy, lay it on your leash. Oh, okay. Let's see. You said Dolly?
Dolly. D-A-L-I.
D-A-L-I.
Yeah,
Dolly,
named after
like
the painter.
Painter.
Yes.
Lovely.
If it'll help, I could wax my mustache up, and that might make it easier to imagine.
You know, with that beard, you could probably do the entire sailboat.
I probably could, yes.
Or was that you? I mean, you do look a little like the guy in that picture.
Which,
The one with the sailboat and his beard and mustache, literally woven into it as a weave, like.
I'm not imagining that one, but yes, I believe you.
I think it says. I think it says.
I'm probably not
I think it
memorized
says I
everything.
have. I think it says I have a 4-masted sailing boat in my beard, so your opinion is invalid.
Oh,
I think that was the caption on the.
Wow, okay.
It was.
Yeah.
I would try to look it up, but we're out of time.
Yes. Yeah. How much time we have? Oh, in the whole live stream.
I was awake and ready for this. I was a little half asleep last time when we were talking. About 4 hours that night.
Thank you all coming for this live stream. It was an unusual day.
What is a usual day? Because I think
A good usual day is like 5 or 6 discussions. Today we had 2.
Oh, wow.
And our first discussion, we waited 2 hours and 15 minutes before starting. I think we did have some talk with people online in the middle. We had a real issue with that line heading into the boats. encroaching and blocking off, and we
Making
couldn't
it
get
kinda loud.
people making eye contact.
Yeah.
People were just resistant to engage.
People in line for a thing, waiting for a thing, don't want to get distracted by something else and lose their place in line.
Yeah, maybe that. And
That is
and if we're close to the end of the line, the people that were just passing by wouldn't engage if we were too close to the end of the line. So we ended up moving everything down one palm tree.
people only have an amount
and-
of active attention. So
Yeah,
if they're trying to solve a problem, they're not
Yep.
going to look at another thing and interact with it.
exactly.
And the line is a problem for passersby.
Yeah, it's a problem
Getting
for everybody.
To the end of the line is a problem for the people in it.
Indeed.
So none of them are going to stop to look around for something more fun to do when they're trying to solve their problems.
Up, 2 downs. It's a particle physics joke.
Anyway,
But you
4
got to
o'clock.
spin them really fast.
it's 4 o'clock. We're going to end the stream now.
You gotta-
Thanks,
you gotta
everyone.
Make them rotate around each other into every possible position about 1 billion times in 1 split second. Then it would look like a particle.
So,
Agreed.
Which is actually what one of them by itself looks like.
yeah. We won't be here
Very
next
nicely
week.
Done still frame of all those little circles and loops around each other.
Yeah.
Oh, oh yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, Pokey.
See ya. There you go.
There we go.
That's David.
That's David. Okay, cool.
How
Good
was
to meet
that?
David.
Yeah.
That was really, really hard for me to follow. I can't make a model from that. I tried to listen really well.
Yeah, me too. I tried last week.
Hmm.
Just,
Sometimes even my favorite physics teacher does that to me. She'll say a bunch of words, and I'll go, I bet she believes that. I don't know what she meant. That happens.
yeah. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching.
Hmm.
We won't be back next week.
Nope, not next week. Next week is the 4th, and we're deciding not. I think he's out of town, and I'm deciding not to try it on my own.
Yeah, so in 2 weeks we'll be back. Maybe we'll do some Clubhouse or VR in the meantime.
Cool.
We'll see.
Cool.
All right, later.
Thank you. Bye.